across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very, very good morning to you. This is Talk. We are the home of common sense, and I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Whether you're listening on DAB+ radio or on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or on your connected device, it is lovely to have your company on this beautiful sunny day. Oh, it's probably at the BBC record-breaking temperatures, isn't it? Hottest day of the year? I would have always have thought that every single day of the year up to, I don't know, July or August would be the hottest day of the year. I don't know. Well, OK, not in Britain, obviously, because we get random weather, and we always have done. But apparently, I don't know. Something to do with climate change, probably. I'm taking a guess. But anyway, have a lovely day. I certainly know around my way, a lot of people having urgent working from home days. Just last minute, massive report they've got right, working from home in their garden. So if you're doing the same, thank you for joining us. Right, lots and lots to talk about today. It's quite nice to wake up this morning, first thing, and just check my phone and go, oh, good. We're not in a full-blown World War III, which was given the threats to bomb basically Iran back to the Stone Age by Donald Trump yesterday, talking about ending their civilization, left us all a little bit, let's go with trepidatious last night when we went to bed. But we woke up this morning to find out that Donald Trump had declared today as a big day for world peace, as he agreed a 2-week ceasefire with Iran and the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. Although Iran apparently is planning to charge ships for going through the Strait of Hormuz, which they weren't able to do before. Both sides have claimed victory. But who actually won, if anyone at all? Plus, Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, pretending that he has any vague role at all in any world affairs, is travelling to the Gulf today with talks with allies. Also, we're going to be talking about the news that happened yesterday afternoon after I was off air, but we talked about it a lot on the show yesterday. The Wireless Festival in North London has been cancelled after the government blocked Kanye West from coming to the UK. But why was he given approval for his visa in the first place? Plus, the Tory leader Kemi Badenoch has said that she would ban doctors from striking if the Tories were elected. I'd like to point out the Tories were in power quite a long time and did not do that, despite most of the strikes that the BMA have had in the recent years have been under the Tories. That said, Kemi Badenoch was not the leader of the Tories at the time. Anyway, so much to talk about, and I'm delighted to say that joining me for the chat today is Claire Pearsall, former Conservative Government Advisor. Morning to you.
Morning.
Great to have a sunny day, great to not be in World War III. So, yay for us.
Yes. Yeah,
I mean, you know, let's be cheerful about something.
I think you have to.
Question I'm putting to my audience, I'll give out the phone numbers, and I want to hear your thoughts. Donald Trump has declared a 2-week ceasefire with Iran, both sides claiming victory. We've got his 10-point plan, which the Iranians have drawn up, which looks remarkably like just something the only Iranians would agree to, which apparently is the working paper to sort of start negotiations with America, but includes things like reparations to Iran for the bombing. I mean, are you kidding me? What were we paying? Well, I suppose we did pay effectively to the Germans, didn't we, after we bombed them? Well, the Americans paid for it all, didn't they? But what's your reaction to that? What's your reaction to Donald Trump's threats? The war, the initial actual strikes started 6 weeks ago by Donald Trump and by Benjamin Netanyahu in Israel on Iran, the retaliation, the threats, the bombastic tweets and messages from Donald Trump, all the threats he's made. Has he won because actually he has brought Iran to their knees, or frankly, has he exposed actually how strong Iran is and actually left them, OK, lost an Ayatollah, possibly a second one, may or may not be in a coma, but actually the regime is still in place. They've now got control of the Strait of Hormuz, which they didn't before, and frankly, we're not in a better place than we were a few weeks ago. What is your thought on this? Was it all worth it? Will this end in peace? Will the world be a better place? Tell me your reaction. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Text the word talk and your message to 87222. Get in touch with us on X at Talk TV. Calls to charge the national rate and text cost £1 standard network rate message. So Claire Pearsall, how's it going then? There's my intellectual Radio 4 style question.
Absolutely. Well, I was expecting this morning to wake up and sort of almost World War III kicking off. And I'd like to point out my husband did wake me up when the news broke last night.
Yes,
I was asleep.
Thanks for that.
Thanks. Yeah. So that's a relief. I've seen 3 different versions of the 10-point plan going around on social media this morning, so I'm not entirely sure which one is the legit one. There are Pakistan talks on negotiations on Friday, I believe, in Islamabad.
Yeah.
So that's when all of the detail will be hashed out. So at the moment, good. We're not in a war situation. Nobody's been bombing anybody. But the details of when the ceasefire is going to start, how long it's going to last, and what these
they always take a little while because you have to basically get all these messages down the line. And we know one of the issues we've got with Iran is that they've basically got all these all these sort of individual units which have got their own weapons and their own instructions from the late Ayatollah. Well, the 10-point peace plan apparently is a commitment to non-aggression. Oh, okay. Iran's control over the Strait of Hormuz. Now, okay, they didn't have Strait. One of the points of being a world power, it's one of the things that we did when the British Navy was the world power, was you control the seas. And if you control the seas, you control trade, and you control the movement of warships, and you control the movement of cargo. And it basically, it is an extraordinary big power. Now, America basically does that now. One of the reasons why China is trying to threaten America, power in the South China Sea, is because they want to have that control. But Iran basically, and they've been doing this already, basically charging a fee to get your boat out of the Strait of Hormuz, allowing anyone who sort of plays nicey with the Iranian regime allies, they can the Chinese have been getting some of their oil. It's in our interest for the Strait of Hormuz to be open. Otherwise, we're facing massive global recession. You've got a pension, your stocks are going to go down, your pension's going down. You're going to be paying more for every single thing, putting the heating on when we need it again, putting fuel in your car, everything you buy. We are looking at oil shortages in China. Massive issue for virtually everything we buy on Amazon. So this is a big issue. But if they are able to charge a fee, they're holding the world to ransom, and they're going to be making serious money off that, because it ain't going to be 15 quid, is it? The Iranians say they want the acceptance of Iran's uranium enrichment, but they only need to enrich uranium to 2 or 3% for a nuclear power station. Also, you don't need nuclear power stations, you've got loads of oil. So 60% enrichment, we know they've got that. I'm sorry, that's not up for debate, apart from to idiots on X who claim, no, they haven't got it. They've said they've got it. That's a bit of a clue that they've got it. There's no way. I mean, the whole point of this war, if there was one war aim, it was getting rid of their nuclear capability. So that doesn't work. Lifting of all primary sanctions and lifting of all secondary sanctions. So sanctions on other countries for dealing with Iran. But the whole point of those sanctions is to stop Iran being able to make a fortune and fund its nuclear and military power. So I don't see how Israel can agree to that. Such as they get, say, termination of all UN Security Council resolutions. So again, all the criticism of Iran. Termination of all Board of Governors resolutions. And this is extraordinary. Paying compensation to Iran. Again, so what? Compensating Iran for that. I mean, I consider those to be defensive strikes, not offensive, because of their threats to other countries. Withdrawal of all US combat forces from the region. Huge number of US military bases in Arab states, and cessation of war on all fronts, including in Lebanon. Well, Netanyahu is not going to agree to that because he's still trying to deal with the threat from Hezbollah, and he's already said that the ceasefire doesn't affect. I mean, if apparently this is the basis, according to Donald Trump and the White House, of their conversations. The winner of this war is the Iranian regime.
Yes. Yeah. That's it and all about it. They are going to be allowed to go ahead with uranium enrichment. They are allowed to charge people for using the Strait of Hormuz. And they're basically having all sanctions against them lifted. I mean, they're laughing all the way to the bank, aren't they? Because
quite literally.
Literally. But they're not going to be charging a small amount of money for ships coming through. And you can imagine that some countries are going to get a way more preferential deal than others.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they're going to be raking this in. This is like the sort of congestion charge on steroids at this point.
Well, yeah.
But paying compensation. Since
for
when?
What? For what? Are they going to compensate everybody for the terror attacks and all the and Israel for the attacks on them?
Well, precisely.
I mean, you can pay for the Iron Dome that they need because of Iran. I mean, this is the thing. I mean, Donald Trump posted on Truth Social, I agree to suspend the bombing and attack of Iran for a period of 2 weeks. But he said after talks with the Pakistani Prime Minister Sharif, he had been assured that Iran will agree to the complete, immediate and safe opening of the Strait of Hormuz. This will be a double-sided ceasefire. And basically he says we've already met and exceeded all military objectives and are very far along with a definitive agreement concerning long-term peace with Iran. Now, a lot of people are saying there weren't any talks going on. Obviously, there have been talks going on. They wouldn't have been able to get to this point. And Pakistan has played a key role. I don't know why people think Pakistan is a friendly state. They are not. They are another very extremist Islamic state. They are. I mean, A woman who goes to the police because she has been raped in Pakistan is likely to get punished herself for having had sex outside marriage. This is not a state that we should consider to be a friendly state. And by the way, there's a reason why the Pakistani grooming gangs came from Pakistan in terms of a lot of their attitudes, their cultural attitudes to women and girls, and to non-Muslims. I'm sorry, we should not treat them as a friendly state. We do not share any values with Pakistan, as far as I'm aware. Where we've seen, oil prices absolutely plunged by I think 17 points at one point. Stock market's gone up. That's good. But if this doesn't continue, we're still got a problem. And the actual impact on the cost of living that we have seen, that hasn't really fed into where in terms of the diesel shortages, the fertiliser shortages. We got pretty much all our fertiliser from the Middle East. The jet fuel, aviation fuels, all of these shortages. Basically, companies are using their stockpiles at the moment, but unless production is ramped up straight away and the ships are getting out double quick, we are still looking at a huge impact in terms of our cost of living and possibly a global recession anyway.
That's right. I mean, there are thousands of ships that are stuck and not on the move. So if you think the time lag that it's going to have for anything to come to the UK, I mean, these are weeks or even months in advance. And we've only got, 60 days reserve of oil in the country. So we need to be looking at
no gas.
Yeah, absolutely no gas. But we need to be looking at how we get that sorted a little bit sooner. Aviation fuel, I know that there are places in Italy where they have run out their supply of aviation fuel, so they're in pretty dire straits, and that is only going to work across Europe as we go.
I mean, where do you stand on Donald Trump, his threat to wipe out the entire civilization of Iran if they did not reopen the strait? There'll be Trump MAGA fans saying, there you are, you see, he's talked tough and he's made the threat and it's worked. I think the US has backed down personally. I think this is a humiliation for the US. I think the Israelis are going along with this with their teeth clenched, going, "What are you thinking?" But he shouldn't have made those threats. And if people say, "Oh, well, it's just talking tough," sorry. Again, I support the aims of the war. I haven't got Trump derangement syndrome. I think he's right. I think this was a war of defence by Israel and America and needed to be done at some point. And this was an opportune moment to do it. There were some moments to take out the chiefs, but I think when he talks like that, I think he undermines the righteousness of the actions, and he undermines America and the West. And you can't be talking about wiping out an entire civilization of a country. You just can't be doing that. Is just. I mean, okay, Afghanistan didn't have much fun they can stop bombing Iran Afghanistan because they ran out of things to bomb. Yes. But Iran is a huge country, like 90-odd million people. It's an ancient civilization. It's got proper infrastructure. It's a functioning big country. And I'm just sort of so. Should I be disappointed? I think that Donald Trump his words have gone well ahead of the ability of America to do what he's meant to do, and I don't think he should have made those threats or used that language.
Well, no, he shouldn't. But you can't make those kind of threats if you aren't ultimately going to carry out the action at the end.
But I don't think he would have.
No, neither do I.
So then it's even worse.
Even worse. So the people that win out of this are Iran, and when you look at the communications front of it, normally the US are front and centre with communications. I'm not sure if you've seen the level of trolling that has come from different Iranian embassies around the world. Yeah. And the airwaves war is definitely being won by a nation that I didn't really think had humour attached to.
No, absolutely.
But they are seeing themselves as the winner in all of this.
Well, there's Donald Trump walking down the steps of Air Force One waving a big white flag and AI.
Oh, absolutely. But there's things like, open up the Strait of Hormuz, which was Donald Trump's tweet minus the bad language. And all you get was, we've lost the keys, we can't do it. And you just sort of think, right, they are openly laughing at you.
Yeah,
they are.
That's the thing.
Pointing the finger and saying, you're not going to win here. And I'm afraid they are right on this. He shouldn't have gone out there in that manner.
Absolutely. Well, we got the embarrassment. Keir Starmer's off to the Gulf today. He said the fragile ceasefire hammered out by the US and UN may be turned into a lasting agreement. And he's travelling to the Gulf. Apparently, I don't know what he thinks he's going to do. He welcomed the ceasefire. Together with our partners, we must do all we can to support and sustain this ceasefire, turn it into a lasting agreement and reopen the Strait of Hormuz. So he's going to go sort of have talks with allies. I mean, I'm not entirely sure. I mean, Britain is so on the sidelines. And the embarrassment we discovered yesterday about HMS Dragon on one Type 40...
45 destroyer.
45 destroyer. She knows her military stuff. Type 45 destroyer. Gone out. It took a week to get it out of port. Yeah. 2 weeks to get it to Cyprus to protect our airbase, which was being protected by the French at that point. I mean, talk about humiliating. And it's had to return to port because it's got a technical issue. I mean, we're a joke country. We're a joke country now.
But they said we can't rule the waves when we can't even run a tap to get some clean water out of it. But this is what you get for not spending on defence. This is what you get for not taking the maintenance of these ships seriously.
Your lot didn't do it.
No, absolutely. I blame pretty much every government for this.
Although virtually every defence secretary was calling for it. Just, you know.
Well, they say, but also the defence budget, what's it, £60 billion?
Now, yeah.
Now. So you've got to question, yes, you need more money, but where is that money being spent and how well is it being spent? Because I don't think the MOD is very good at doing that.
No, well, we know that the French have the same budget, but they've got a lot more bang for their buck, haven't they? Let's also talk about Kanye West. Big debate. We talked about it a lot on the show yesterday about whether or not he should be banned from entering the country, whether he should be stood down from headlining the Wireless Festival in North London. I do actually know about this festival. I've picked up children from this festival in the past, but basically, I mean, he's been blatantly, openly anti-Semitic, and I don't mean always criticise Israel. I mean, selling T-shirts with a swastika on, and song tracks in his album still available, as Gideon Falter from Campaign Against Anti-Semitism pointed to us yesterday on Spotify and everything, called Heil Hitler, extolling what Hitler's done. He's still making money from his anti-Semitism. He suddenly decides he's not anti-Semitic. It was all just his bipolar mental health problems. We were told he should show forgiveness by the Wireless Festival boss, but at the end, the Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood banned the rapper from entering the country on the grounds that his presence would not be conducive to the public good. It's not the first time this has been done. Theresa May's done it in the past as well. Keir Starmer said he should never have been invited to headline Wireless. He stands firmly with the Jewish community against anti-Semitism. We stand so firmly that a visa was issued by his own government to this man. Yeah. Sorry, I mean, really? Really? That happened. No, so they allow these things to happen. You'd think that anything high profile like that would be flagged up to high levels in the Home Office. You worked in the Home Office. Would Shabana Mahmood have known in advance that this guy had been given, would someone have flagged, hey, by the way, this guy's headlining? Those tickets didn't just go on sale last week. No. It's sold out, isn't it? I mean, this festival sells out within a day.
Well, it is, and it's an annual event, so it's not come as any surprise. Things like that would have been flagged up. When I was there, we did revoke visas off of some fairly high-profile people coming into the UK because we knew where they were going, we knew where they were booked to talk. So, yes, they would have known about it. So why was that visa issued only a few days ago? Yeah. It's not as if it was issued a month or two in advance. This is recent.
Well, and what do you make? I mean, Lib Dems had called for it to be revoked. So did Tory leader Hemi Badenoch. Nigel Farage has said that it's a slippery slope. He says, I know he said some dreadful things, that people thought he was genuinely going to come into Britain and urge attacks on the Jewish community. There would be full grounds for stopping it. If it's just saying things we find objectionable, then I think bans are a slippery slope. But it's not objectionable. I mean, I think that when you are celebrating the man who killed 6 million Jews, and by the way, millions more, disabled people, black people, gay people, Romani gypsies. Well, I mean, 10 million in total, I think, went through the the camps. Again, I'm a freedom of speech defender. But I mean, we had Tom Slater on the show yesterday. He's rather more, absolutist on it. I mean, I'm not an absolutist on it. I don't want preachers coming in. The argument for allowing Kanye West in is the same argument for allowing a far right, and I mean proper far right, not Claire and me, because we think there should be borders, far right, the pretend far right. But the far right preachers who genuinely argue for, Aryan supremacy, Ku Klux Klan style. I don't want those people coming from abroad into this country. I don't want hate preachers who are Islamist fascists. I don't want any of those people. So why do we allow a rapper? I mean, it's the idea that, he's a rapper, so it's okay. No, he's got more influence.
Yeah, and I think that's what's the most disturbing thing. So if he was allowed to come and headline at the festival, what is the outcome of that? Yeah. Are there more T-shirts going to be sold with swastikas?
Yeah.
Are we going to see those on the streets of London? Is that message going to come through? Because I'm sorry, I don't want that. I don't want that for any person to have to see, hear, listen to, read in the news, whatever. He doesn't need to be here. Wireless knew what they were doing when they booked him.
And again, I appreciate the argument about forgiveness from the leader.
Though.
But the point is that, as was pointed out yesterday, a number of times Kanye West says these things, and then he pretends to apologise. Well, he apologises, but after the tour he says, "I didn't mean it." So the thing is, if he really is horrified by what he said and what he did, stop making money from these things. Give that money to an countering anti-Semitism charity. That would be the obvious thing to do. And come and meet with with Jewish community leaders and have them explain to go to a Holocaust museum publicly and do some penance. Because what annoys me is this is not about, if I don't agree with someone. It's not a question of agreeing. You can have various views. But the point is that I just don't believe for a moment that he is conducive to the public good. And I guess I think we should have standards about who comes here. Mine would be rather stricter than the government's. But there we are. So much more to talk about. Just very briefly, doctor strike, second day today. Kemi Badenoch says the Tories would ban doctor strikes, have a minimum service requirement. So, you can have some people out on strike, that's fine, but you basically got staff the hospitals. That's what I think would be acceptable. You want to work in the public sector. It's a vital service. People die if you're not at work. It's not the same as being a cashier at a supermarket and wanting extra pay, going on strike at Morrison's. So, all right, we'll all go to Sainsbury's to get our food. Sorry, it's not option. It's bare minimum.
Absolutely. Members of the armed forces can't go on strike.
Police can't. Prison officers can't.
Prison officers, people like that. So why should the NHS get a free reign over this?
Why didn't the Tories do that while they were in office?
I just don't think they have
Was
the
it
backbone.
discussed?
I believe it was. I remember hearing things a couple of years ago, but nothing concrete on it. I think that they were too concerned with the power of the unions, and it would never happen and it would never go through. So I think they should have held their nerve and something more concrete.
Again,
but they didn't do it.
That massive majority that they had. Everyone says, the massive majority that Keir Starmer has.
No,
Tories had a big enough majority to get anything they wanted through. It's extraordinary. And again, I believe in trade unions. I understand. I want them to be able to go out and strike and do work through all. They've got every right to do that. I can disagree or agree with their policies, but I don't think you should be able to hold the rest of the country to ransom. If you do certain jobs, and I include, train drivers. If you work in the public sector, in a public facing work that is vital for the functioning of this country, sorry, some of those rights are limited. Tough. If you don't like it,
don't
go and work in the private sector. 10:25 is the time. Love to hear your thoughts on all of those stories. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. We'd also love to hear specifically about this 2-week ceasefire with Iran. I think we're all relieved we're not having a massive war. We're not seeing civilization being bombed back to the Stone Age. But what is your reaction to that 2-week ceasefire? Who do you think won? Because both sides are claiming victory. I'd love to hear your thoughts. 0344 499 1000. Text the word TALK in your message to 87222. Get in touch on X at Talk TV. This is Talk.
The Crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to The Royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
The show. Sorry, good morning. I had to press the button down there so you couldn't hear me. Good morning. Welcome back to the show. 10:29 is the time. Got all the tech there, guys. All the tech. I think it's the sunshine getting to me. Look, let's get straight to your messages and your calls about this 2-week ceasefire victory, both for America and Iran. I'm not sure how that works in a war, but what's your reaction? Paula says, I just hope Reeves learns a lesson and buys shed loads of oil while it's cheap to get us ready for the next crisis. There's an idea. Deb says there's only one winner and it isn't Trump. Harriet says the US lost. Yasmin says chickened out at the 11th hour. What's that, Taco? Trump always chickens out. Here I was sleeping soundly thinking the world was about to end in nuclear fire. By the way, no one was saying it was going to be nuclear. There's the thing, not going to go, he's not going to be nuclear. Ryan says you can't make peace with the devil. Don't know who's referring to there. I don't know what his politics are. John says the Iranian leadership has lied to successive presidents over the decades. Why does anyone think they haven't this time? Thank you. Trump has fallen for it as well. I'm afraid the consequences will be tragic. And Neil says, can't trust Iran or Trump. There are no winners. Andy says, aside from the fall of Saigon, I can't think of another comparable shellacking in history. Shellacking is a much underused word. Good effort there, sir. Sean is on the line. He's called 0344 499 1000. Sean's in Northampton. Sean, good morning to you. What do you want to say?
Good morning, Julia. How are you?
Very well indeed. Are you enjoying the sunshine?
Oh, it's absolutely gorgeous.
Are you pretending to work from home?
No, we fly out to Rhodes tomorrow.
Oh!
It's not too good.
OK, all together. Sod off, Sean.
Yeah.
Have a lovely... I've been to Rhodes. Wonderful place. Went to my first ever child-free hotel there. Oh, adult-only hotels. That was a revelation.
I know.
What a joy.
We're going to a 5-star this year.
Get you!
We're pushing.
Sean's doing all right, people. Sean's not worried about the cost of living crisis. Anyway, Sean, what do you want to say, my love? We digress.
But basically, everyone's saying about who's winning and who's losing this war. I think the only losers are the entire West and Western Europe, because, in my view, my own personal view, they've lost the chance now where the whole of the Western world could have said to this Iranian Guard people that, this is enough now. I think Trump would have gone in if he had the support of all the NATO countries. It would have been given more credibility to the war.
So we should have stepped up and sided with the US.
I believe that us, the Italians, the Spanish, the whole of the NATO alliance, really the Iranian Guard, they've been killing people in the West for as well as only decades, and they'll continue to do so.
Yeah.
What really frustrates me, it's in line with the Israel and the Gaza thing. When the Hamas attacked Israel, everyone was aghast and feeling sorry for Israel. Within 3 weeks, they're all feeling sorry for Palestine because Israel retaliated. And likewise now, you got all these idiots now feeling sorry for the Iranian population.
Yeah.
Well, at the end of the day, in any war, there's going to be casualties. I don't want to see any innocent people killed. I really don't.
But that happens in every war. Yeah.
Someone, sometime, had to put a stop to Iran getting a nuclear weapon and Iranian guards being able to dictate. I mean, I personally, honestly believe we have got thousands of Iranian guards in this country, and it doesn't. One day they're all going to run. I know it's the old conspiracy theory. I believe they're over here. I believe they think that the British Isles are the easiest target in the whole world.
I agree. We are. I think. No, you're right. I think. Well, we've certainly got Iranian sleeper cells here. That's not a conspiracy theory. Anyone in the security services will tell you that.
My worry is now. I'll be very quick as I can. My last worry now is that absolute idiot Starmer is flying over there, having made us look idiots in the world with our one ship that's now broken down and heading back to Gibraltar, apparently. With our one ship, and we can't get no army out there. He's going out there now with that big, false, slimy, smarmy grin on his face, as if he's going to do anything that's going to change one iota.
It's actually embarrassing,
the man's
isn't it?
insane, and he should just, well, he could get shot on the way over, he could get shot down, couldn't he?
Don't joke about that. Don't joke about that. I'm going to draw the line there. But no, I agree with you. I mean, it's just an embarrassment. It really is. Really interesting. Great, interesting analysis, Sean. Thank you very much, Steve, for that. You enjoy your little trip to your 5-star hotel in Rhodes tomorrow. We'll be thinking of you. Send us a postcard. 10:33 is the time. Now we're giving you the chance to win a life-changing £20,000, completely tax-free, here on Talk. That's £20,000 straight into your bank account. Spend it, save it, splash it on a hotel in Rhodes. It's entirely up to you. Here's how you could be with a chance to win.
For your chance to win, text TALK to 83338. Texts cost £2.50 plus your standard network rate. Or call 0343 418 7260. Lines close 9th of April 2026, 4 p.m. That's when you'll need to answer your phone if it rings. 18 plus, UK residents only. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at talk.tv/win. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 83338 now.
Very good luck to you to that. Well, going to take a quick break. Up next, going to be talk to Jake Wallace-Simons about what the hell happened last night. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good morning. Welcome back. 10:36 is the time. This is Talk. Let's get straight to my next guest, Jake Wallace-Simons. He's author of Never Again, How the West Betrayed the Jews and Itself, and joins us right now to talk about, well, the ceasefire, 2-week ceasefire, and apparently a victory, Jake, for both the Trump and the America, and also for Iran. How do both sides end up with a victory in a ceasefire after a 6-week war?
I think this isn't a victory for Iran. This is this bases the Americans. It gives them the upper hand temporarily, at the very least. I mean, the Americans, of course. Yes, I think so. I mean, the Strait of Hormuz is now open for 2 weeks. That wouldn't have happened if the Iranians hadn't been battered almost to oblivion in terms of their military capabilities.
Hold on a minute, Jake. The Strait of Hormuz is open, but they're going to be charging ships. They have to register with the Iranian authorities. They're charging ships to pass through. It was free passage until 6 weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, of course, it's a sticking plaster solution, but it's better than it was, and in that way, America has made a tactical gain. I think overall, it's a mixed picture, really, because the Iranians, make no mistake about it, have been battered almost into oblivion in terms of their military capabilities, and yet, as you've rightly said, they've got this stranglehold on the Straits, which is the sticking point and has been their strategy all along. I mean, the difference between how things are now and how things were on the 27th of February, the day before the war, is simply that the strategy has been activated. They've been building up to this for a long time with their assets along the coastline of Hormuz for many, many years, building up to this point that if they're attacked, this is what they were going to do, and they've done it. And that is a situation that has to be resolved, don't get me wrong. But I think it's interesting that the Iranians were swearing that they were never going to have a ceasefire, they were going to carry on, no more, I think the quote was, no more cycle of war and peace, but we're going to, hit them in the mouth, I think was the phrase, and now they've been forced to do so.
Well, you say that. It's interesting you come with that point of view, because, I mean, it seems to me that Iran have, they're getting no more bombing. I mean, whether their 10-point plan, whether they get even one item on their 10-point plan is going to be worth seeing. One of the things I think I'm very clear about with Donald Trump, and this is not Trump derangement syndrome, is that he is a bloody awful negotiator. He really is shockingly, shockingly bad at negotiating. I know, I mean, I massively applaud him for what he did in Gaza and getting the hostages out for Israel and all of that. But this, I mean, in terms of where we are in Ukraine, shocking. In terms of where we are here, I think it looks pretty bad indeed as well, because we're in a worse position now in terms of the global economy. Iran has shown that, OK, fine, you can bomb us, for 6 weeks, but we have a power over you and your economies that means that you silly democracies, and you care about what people think and how the cost of their living, and that they're going to force you to care when there's an election, that we've actually got power back over you. We've established that Iran does have a trump card, for want of a better phrase, to play whenever they choose to play it. And frankly, there's nothing the West can do about it.
Well, I mean, I agree with some of what you've said. Certainly, Iran does have that trump card. It's played that trump card, but it's always had that trump card. That's the point. I mean, I've spoken to Royal Navy officers who've been engaged in war games for decades, thinking that if we were to go to war with Iran, what would we do about Hormuz? It's just bizarre that the Americans didn't plan for that in advance of starting this war. That's the biggest failure of this campaign. But as to whether Trump's a good or a bad negotiator, I mean, compared to whom? The Biden administration was far, far worse when it came to negotiating with Iran, as was the Obama administration. No one's had any luck with Iran in terms of negotiations at all. I mean, I totally agree with you when it comes to Russia. I mean, if Trump was a Russian asset, he wouldn't be behaving any differently to how he is. I mean, Vladimir Putin is the only man, it seems to me, that Trump hasn't insulted on the face of the earth. So that's all. I mean, that's obviously very serious. But separate to this, I think we need to recognize at the same time as Iran being successful to some extent in holding the global economy hostage, it has taken a massive battering militarily. Its ballistic missile stockpiles are way, way down. Its navy's destroyed. Its armed forces are all but destroyed. Its leadership has been decapitated 3 or 4 layers down. Hezbollah has taken a massive battering, which of course is an Iranian proxy that was founded by Iran. And so I think that it's a bit too easy to sort of fall into one side or the other.
No, that's where I agree with you. And it's fascinating, as always, on social media in particular. And I think a lot of commentators on there, I know you've written a very detailed piece in the Telegraph today. Trump gambled on Iran and he won is the headline. But I do think there's much more nuance to this. I think that, the US and the Israel acting against the Ayatollah and taking out any future nuclear capability and ballistic missile risk was the right thing to do. The timing was obviously something that happenstance, but was absolutely something that was going to have to happen. So I support that aspect of it. I think the logistics of not securing the Strait of Hormuz, were that to be possible in advance, is crazy. But there is a real concern that the Iranian regime is still in place. We've had this massive oil spike. We're going to have shortages, and even if everything went back to normal today, we're going to see the effects on the world economy. And Iran has basically gone, OK, we're battered and we're down on the ground, we're bloodied and bruised, but we're just going to get ourselves back up and we're going to start again. And that's what they're going to do. It is very, very obvious that Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, is not in favour of this ceasefire, isn't it? Not in favour at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think the point really is that this war is still ongoing, and there are different levels of success and failure on both sides. And Hormuz obviously is a key point. I mean, that's got to be resolved for victory one way or the other. And if it isn't opened permanently, then the Iranians will have a feather in their cap. But it's a complicated situation that's quite fast moving. And I always bring us back to first principles. Let's not forget who the good guys are here.
Yes.
And let's not forget who the enemy is. I mean, the Iranian regime is the most evil, repressive, brutal regime on earth that threatens the West on our own shores in Britain, as well as Israel and our interests and allies in the Middle East. 47 years of negotiation, of appeasement has not worked.
Yep.
This had to happen sooner or later. If it would have happened in the 80s, when there were the tanker wars, when there was a bit of the flurry of American military action in response to the mining of a US ship, then it might have been easier.
Yeah.
If we'd have been waited another 5 years, it would have been more difficult than it is now. War is not easy. The enemy always has a vote. Your plan never survives contact. We're in a war right now, at least the Americans and the Israelis are, and we've all just got to do what we can to support that effort to victory, which is what I want to see above all else, even more than wanting to see Trump humiliated.
Well, this is the thing. It is extraordinary how many people in the West, and particularly on the left, but I would say even on the right as well, just sort of wanting Trump to lose, wanting Trump to be humiliated, and seeming to completely forget the mass slaughter of tens of thousands of young people on the streets who simply wanted, not to cover their hair and to live freely and to be able to make a living and have basic liberties we just take for granted in this country. It was extraordinary to see outside Downing Street last night, seeing footage of people, with the Iranian regime's flag shouting Allahu Akbar outside Number 10. Now, we allow freedom of protest and assembly in this country, but, we've got some big question marks about that, haven't we?
That's right. I mean, those people shouldn't be in Britain. What are they doing here? They shouldn't be here. They shouldn't be agitating against our democracy and our freedoms, using our own freedoms to subvert the freedoms from within. That's a serious problem that we've got on our shores. But you're absolutely right. It does. I mean, I'm no defender of Donald Trump. I'm no fan of Donald Trump. I take him case by case as time goes on. But there's a surprising number of people that are so keen to see him humiliated,
yes,
to see this fail, that they forget that would mean the triumph of a regime that slaughtered more than 30,000 of its own people in 2 days on the streets of Iran. I mean, and just think what that looks like. That looks like 30,000 bodies gunned down, blood all over the streets, grieving parents, grieving families, generations lost. That is a serious evil in the world that needs to be expunged and needs to be defeated. And as much as you dislike Trump, let's get clear about who the enemy is here and what we all want to see as a result of this.
I couldn't agree with you more on that front. The trouble is, the West is getting really, really bad at the idea of wars, isn't it? Because unless it's something very, very clear-cut, we've just been... But although, again, the threats for Iran have been very, very clear-cut to both Israel and to Britain and to America, the terror attacks, the killing of American troops. I mean, this was clearly a defensive war. I've got no issue with that description at all. And yet the West and so many in the media and the political classes and academia and particularly the young people who get all their information from TikTok and rather from reputable sources seem to think that war is bad and therefore we should never go to war. Even, I mean, these are people who wouldn't have fought Hitler. This is the trouble we are in, where if petrol goes up by 10 pence a litre, we shouldn't be at war. That is a massive handicap to the West. That needs to be a wake-up call about sometimes there has to be some sacrifice for the greater long-term safety. This is something Israel gets. This is something you and I've talked about many times. Israel gets it. This is an existential war for them. If they don't defeat Iran and the Iranian mullahs, then they will no longer exist. It is that simple. We don't get that in the West.
That's right. I mean, we're still living in a world of 7 Sundays. We haven't taken the threat against us seriously because we haven't really felt it. It hasn't begun to bite in the way that it did, of course, during the Second World War, for example. Recent polls have shown that half of Britons say they would never fight to protect their country, even in a time of war. But of course, the further you go towards the danger, the more reality sets in and the less luxury beliefs you have.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see Poland, Germany, rearming seriously. Estonia, Finland, of course, have never given up that vigilance and are bolstering their forces as we speak. But Germany in particular is building many, many new munitions factories. It's becoming the military superpower in Europe, always determined to be so, once again, as it was with bad results.
And young men of fighting age need permission to leave the country now.
Exactly right, for more than 3 months. And in Israel, of course, we see it as well. So I think here we have that luxury complacency that's not just amongst the public, it also stretches all the way up into the political echelons and into our defence staff as well. I mean, the state of our armed forces reflects that complacency. We have what's been described to me recently by a senior military officer as a bonsai military force, which is very small, perfectly formed, very difficult to maintain, and terrible in a storm. That's what we've got. And the spectre of that one ship that we eventually belatedly managed to get out the door to the Mediterranean, now going wrong and having to be sent for repair just says it all. We are totally unprepared for the storm that faces us, and I just hope that we manage to get real before it actually breaks on our shores.
I always hope in these scenarios that these are wake-up calls and the national humiliation that's brought. But don't worry, that will wake us up. Keir Starmer's off to the Middle East, so everything will be fine now. Jake Wallace-Simons, always good to talk to you. Thank you very much. Claire Pistol, former Conservative government advisor, your thoughts on what you had to say?
Luxury complacency, I think, is one of the best phrases I've heard to describe this. We don't really understand. It's not like Israel, who have so many missiles being thrown at them from so many different directions.
Bomb shelters in every house.
We don't have that, and we need to understand that it's coming our way unless we're very, very careful.
Or we just carry on putting up with the terror attacks. Everyone's like, we're not affected by this. Yeah, you are. Yeah, you are. Iran is fomenting the terror attack. If you're fine with that, the anti-Semitism that we got, all the community tensions, all that. Yeah, well done. We can all ignore it. Put your head in the sand. That's absolutely fine. So I don't like war. Fine, keep on doing that. But you may find it might be a bit too late to wake up. But there we are. 10:48 is the time. Up next, should we ban doctors from going on strike? Many other public sector workers are not allowed to go on strike without providing a minimal level of service to, I don't know, keep people alive in hospitals. We're going to talk to Professor Carol Sikora about that. Up next, this is Talk.
Is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to the royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. 10:51 is the time. We're on day 2 of the latest resident doctor strike by the BMA. Lots of conversations yesterday about that £3 billion cost over 15 strikes over 3 years that's been claimed in terms of the £50 million a day cost of covering the work of those doctors and dealing with all the difficulties for those strikes. Well, Kemi Badenoch, the Tory leader, has called on ministers to ban doctors from striking. She's accused them of betraying patients with another round of walkouts, and she said the medics' jobs are so critical she would subject them to the same restrictions as the police, the military and prison officers, and basically would have to guarantee a minimum level of service no matter what. So you can go out on strike, you can withdraw, you can work through all of that, but basically you can't just withdraw tens of thousands of doctors from the NHS, because that causes patients not just great distress, long delays, but let's face it, some patients will die as a result. Is that justified? Well, let's talk about this with Professor Carol Sikora. He's Medical Director of the Rutherford Cancer Centres. A very good morning to you, Carol.
Morning, Julia.
Thanks for joining us. Do you think Kemi Badenoch is right?
I think it is. I think stopping strikes for essential workers, it's been tried in nearly every country and it works. And, you know, it's completely irresponsible what's happening now. And I think stopping it legally means the union can't use that as the weapon. I do think there is fault on the other side. There is fault on the politicians' side and the Department of Health side. The doctors have a grievance, not so much about money. I have to say they're doing quite well with money, but a grievance in terms of the training positions to become consultants. That needs to be sorted out.
Because that's about career progression, isn't it? I mean, you're right about the money thing. Again, I'm intensely relaxed about people who've done huge amounts of training and have huge expertise and do a hard job that is life and death for most cases, get paid well, and they start at 52 grand and they can go up. But a lot of their claims about how their pay has been eroded since 2008, frankly, are pretty bogus. And certainly when you compare them to other public sector workers, and indeed private sector workers, they're doing just fine, thank you. But this is the thing, the training positions. I thought it was a bizarre thing for Keir Starmer to make the threat last week. Well, if you don't agree and come back to the table and settle this, we're going to take away 1,000 of those 4,000 training places we promised you. We don't want to lose those training places. We, the public, the patients, we want them to have those training places, don't we?
We do, and they're not really training posts. All they're doing is converting lower grade non-training posts into and saying, we'll just relabel them as training posts. No more money's being put in. It's a complete fallacy that there was anything really on offer. But to then threaten to take them away, it's not a threat you can see through. What are you going to close? And if you take positions away, whatever staff in a hospital, from healthcare assistants, hospital porters, all these things, you take things away, the system won't cope. It's already at a limit of its capacity, and that's the problem. And the limit is being driven by people my age. People over 70 are causing the system to break down. Why? And there's more and more of us. And we're not
being patients. You've got to stop staying alive and costing the NHS so much. There is this thing, isn't it? Like, we do need more doctors. We have the lowest number of doctors, nurses and hospital beds and pretty much all medical staff per head of the population of pretty much any Western nation. That tells you, there are some issues there. We have to accept with an ageing population, when you're born and in the last year of your life, and when you're older, you're going to cost, going to need more healthcare, and you're going to cost more, and we need to allow for that. And we've really not expanded the NHS to allow for that. We need to train more doctors, yes, here at home. I don't think we should be hiring thousands of doctors from abroad when we are limiting the number of Brits with the qualifications you can train. That I think is utterly insane, and done under Tory governments and Labour governments for years. But we need to just have more doctors. And if lots of doctors are leaving, do we need to pay them more and give them better conditions? Because that's how the market works, isn't it?
It is. And the problem is we're all on a healthcare trajectory. We're going along in life. And the ideal one is you go for a long life, good life, and that you're fairly fit into your 70s, 80s even, and then you suddenly have a demise. You're 5 days and you're gone. That's perfect for everybody and for the cost of it. The trouble is what's happened because of medical technology, because of advances, and it's a good thing, people are living longer, but they're not living long with a healthy life. They're becoming ill in old age with multiple problems, multiple comorbidities, we call it in the jargon. And that means that these patients need a combination of social care and medical care. And at the moment, there's nothing. You're either in a care home 1 minute or in a hospital bed the next minute. That you flick like a switch, just flicks over. And that's not how it is. It's a transition of gradual decline as you get older. So what we have to do is look at social care and integrate it with medical care for older people.
And the health secretaries have been yapping on about doing this for years, and no one ever gets on and does it, which is so frustrating. Can I ask you one final question though, in terms of this generation of doctors? I mean, look, there's no doubt at all the BMA is no longer sort of a professional medical union, medical professionals union. It is now sort of a campaigning group, card-carrying Marxists, a lot of them, as far as I can tell. But the Labour Party, that's why they thought they would be fine when they were in. Oh, oops, it turns out not. But I hear lots about all these doctors, they've got burnout, they can only do a 3-day week, whether they're GPs or hospital doctors, it's all too much for them. I mean, have we got a bunch of snowflake doctors now, or is life getting harder for them?
I think the fun's gone from it. It's when I was a young doctor, we're part of a team at all stages, even in things when the job was busy and hard, you were part of a team.
Camaraderie.
Socialise. I used to, when I was head of clinical services for cancer at West London, we'd have people around for dinner, we'd have a party in the summer, a Christmas party in the house, and they'd all come out to Beaconsfield and we have a grand time. And they felt part of a group. That's all gone. And you go in, you do your shift, and you go home. And it's not like you're
not getting the rewards. I think that's an important part, people enjoying the jobs. That's a really, really interesting point. Carol, thank you so much. By the way, and I know you don't shout about any of these things, but we had a caller, Ingrid, back in February, who was, I said I'd get in touch with after the show, and I asked you privately if you could possibly help her with getting some cancer treatment, and you have certainly been a huge help, and they've been back in touch and said how helpful you've been, because you are just an absolutely lovely, lovely man, and you really do care about not just your patients but anyone else's patients. And I just want to thank you, because I know you would never shout about these things, and I want to thank you so much for just being absolutely wonderful to my lovely listener, Ingrid. So thank you.
Was willing to nudge the NHS into action.
That's what we needed. Thank you so much, Carol. Yeah, I would say if I say to someone I'm going to get in touch, I don't just say it. We do actually try and do something. But Claire, just a very quick reaction to what you had to say.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting about the camaraderie and people enjoying their job, because if you're going into that kind of profession, you need the backup of your colleagues, and that's really sad that it isn't there anymore.
But yeah, and I think that in a lot of the end of sort of the going to the pub after work, and again, that again,
absolutely,
making friends. People used to meet their husbands and wives that way. Was that allowed then? Yeah, I wonder how much that is. Again, I was fascinated by all these GPs who were working a 3-day week, saying I can't cope with more than. And then I said, if you're working 3 12-hour shifts, that's fine, but they're largely not. No, it's quite bizarre, isn't it? Anyway, plenty more to talk about. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. I'd love to know, who do you think won this war with Iran? This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very, very good morning. Welcome back to the show. Fast approaching 3 minutes past 11 o'clock on a beautiful, beautiful spring day. I hope you're outside enjoying it. Don't worry, you can still keep the radio on. Great to have you on board here at Talk, the home of common sense, with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. And whether you're listening on DAB Plus radio in the garden, returning to work from home on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or your connected device. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Lots to talk about on the show. If you've missed anything we've already been doing, what were you thinking? Go to my YouTube page, the Julia Hartley-Brewer Show. Hit subscribe and you never have to miss a thing. And I can stop yabbing on about you hitting subscribe so you never have to miss a thing. Would that be a good deal? I think it would be. Coming up in this hour, we're going to discuss the declaration of a big day for world peace by Donald Trump as basically 90 minutes before that deadline, before he was going to bomb Iran back to the Stone Age and destroy their civilization. Today, there was a deal done, a 2-week ceasefire, but both sides seem to be claiming victory. How does that work? We're going to be talking more about the Wireless Festival being cancelled after the government blocked Kanye West from coming to the UK. Not conducive to the public good. No, what with being an anti-Semite Hitler lover, yeah, I wouldn't have thought that was conducive to the public good. But is this an attack on free speech, or do there have to be limits, in particular on the free speech of people who aren't actually British citizens? Plus, the Tory leader, Kimmy Bednock, as we've just been discussing, saying she would ban doctors from striking if elected. And J.D. Vance, the US president, still in Hungary, endorsing the Putin ally Viktor Orban ahead of elections on Sunday, and saying some extraordinary things about Ukraine influencing American and other elections. Straight out of the Kremlin playbook. Very, very worrying stuff indeed. Well, we're going to talk about all of that and plenty more besides. And delighted to say, joining me to the whole show is Claire Pearsall, former Conservative Government Advisor. Morning once again to you. We've got lots to talk about. In particular, I'm asking people to call in about Donald Trump declaring this 2-week ceasefire with Iran. Both sides claiming victory is the rather confusing bit. What's your reaction to that? 0344 499 1000. Do you think that Donald Trump bottled it? Taco? Trump always chickens out? Oh, has he got a big victory here? Netanyahu doesn't seem to be overly pleased about this. He's carrying on his attacks, quite rightly, I would say, on Hezbollah in Lebanon. Do you think we wouldn't be attacking a country that was constantly sending terrorists to and missiles to attack us? I'm pretty sure we would be. Oh, no, sorry, we're led by Keir Starmer. Of course we wouldn't. We would just lay down and say, more, please, and then send a broken HMS Dragon to deal with it. That seems to be our solution to everything. But has Iran won the war? Their 10-point plan for a proper peace deal seems to me to be basically a 10-point plan for an Iranian victory, and basically Iranians a chance to completely build back up their economy, their military capability, and crucially, their nuclear capability. So I want to hear your thoughts on all of that. Give us a call on 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk and your message to 87222. Get in touch with us on X at Talk TV. Calls are charged at the national rate and text cost £1. Standard network rate message. As I say, Claire, we discussed this a bit earlier. I'm just a little bit confused how both sides can be claiming victory.
Yeah, I mean that's where we are. We are getting the message from either side to say that they've won and the other side has chickened out. I don't think we'll ever really know how.
What talks really happened?
What talks really happened, but also how strong was Trump with the message to Iran? He can put it down on Truth Social, but we don't know if that was backed up by anybody in the military in America. Was that actually going to happen?
Did he mean it?
It's interesting.
Because this is the thing. I mean, I think you and I both are of the view that Iran needs to be taken on.
Yes, absolutely.
And again, for Israel, it's existential. For America, it's a long-term issue. Iran declared war on both countries first, a long time ago. They got what's coming.
Yes,
it's a nasty, nasty regime. We knew they were nasty before they started slaughtering innocent young people on the streets. And we've got absolute proof since January of the tens of thousands who died. So, I'm sorry, good riddance. Except they're not gone. The regime is still there. The Ayatollah's gone. The first 2 or 3 or 4 layers of leaders have gone. But the Ayatollah's new Ayatollah, the old Ayatollah's son, apparently lying in a coma with a missing limb or something somewhere in a bunker somewhere. We don't know who's in charge at all. Some negotiations clearly have been going on via Pakistan. Again, I don't know why we're trusting Pakistan. I guess beggars can't be choosers. But I support the aims of the war. I support, carrying out, the attacks to actually stop them getting nuclear weapons. I think Iran is a threat to the world and the region, and particularly to Israel and to its own people. But the failure of the tactics in terms of having enough troops there in advance so that they could stop the Strait of Hormuz being closed. Maybe they should have gone and got Karg Island immediately to stop the oil going out. But the threats, a lot of people who are big Trump fans, and again, I'm someone who would have voted for Trump. I was American last time around. But so I've got Trump derangement syndrome. I think a lot of stuff he does is good, and a lot of stuff he does is rubbish. But I like our last guest, Jake Wallace-Simons, on this issue. I trust him. I judge him on each individual circumstance. But the language, the bombastic language, the threats, bombing you back to the Stone Age, wipe out the entire civilization of Iran. Terrifying for the Iranian people, by the way, as well. Taking on energy structures and railways and things, bridges that could be used by the military, not necessarily a war crime, as a lot of people on Twitter who think they're all experts. It's not necessarily a war crime, but nevertheless, taking out energy supplies that could affect desalination plants. I mean, you're in a different league then, aren't you?
Yes.
The risk of retaliation to the Middle East and Arab states and to Israel, huge, terrifying for them. I don't think that his bombastic language has got us to a ceasefire. I think his bombastic language almost got us to something much, much worse.
Yeah, and I think you're right with that. What is concerning is the lack of strategic planning by the US military as to how this was going to play out. I mean, we're still really unsure as to what the main aim of the war was in the first place.
Well, he said way back 6 weeks ago what the aim was, and it wasn't regime change.
No, it wasn't. And
nuclear capability. Well, he hasn't done that.
No, and this is the problem, is that so many different messages come out. I think if we knew what the strategic aim was and that the US had a plan to back that up, you would feel slightly happier about it, because nobody wants the mullahs in charge. Look at what they're doing to their own people. Look at what they do the rest of the globe.
You say nobody. Apparently an awful lot of young people in this country who also are under the illusion there was a Gaza genocide because they don't do facts.
There are
an awful lot of people on the streets who apparently, and on social media, apparently seem to think the Iranian regime is the goodie in this. I mean, that scares the living daylights out of me, because I think all those people, well, bye, off you go, whether you're a British citizen or not, off you toddle, don't live there then.
They need to understand the situation.
It wouldn't last 2 minutes.
No, but they've never read anything. They have never spoken to anybody other than sort of the little lefty colleagues that they surround themselves with. They don't understand the history of the region. They don't understand the pressures against them.
Listen to a podcast and you'd know more. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. That's what they need to do. They need to stop going out onto the streets and waving flags around and shouting out slogans.
Here's a rule. Don't wave a flag for a country you couldn't place on a map.
Well, yeah.
Can we make that a bare minimum rule? If you can't spell the name of the current leader,
Yes.
No, but seriously, you can't spell the name of the leader, you don't know where it is on a map, I don't think you should have an opinion on it.
No, can't spell it, can't pronounce it.
No,
you don't
deserve
to have it.
We talk about a lot of stuff here where we have to, don't come to the show like, I've done years, I've got an MA, I've been studying years and years on the history of Iran. But I try to hone up on subjects with reputable sources before I give an opinion. And sometimes I sit on the fence on things until I've got more facts, or I change my mind if the facts change. But I don't think it's possible. You can hate America. You can, if you want to be a Marxist, and because you're stupid, because you can't not be stupid if you're a Marxist, because you're not anymore, folks. Not anymore. We'll forgive you the 1920s, but you can't. You can hate America. You can hate capitalism. You can hate Donald Trump. You can do all of that. But that doesn't mean you can think the Iranian regime are the goodies. That you can't want them to win. That doesn't make sense. But this 10-point peace plan the Iranians have put out, but as you said, there are various different versions. This apparently is the 10-point plan from which they go. That's the starting point for negotiations. How Donald Trump can claim some sort of victory? I mean, A commitment to non-aggression. Okay, fair enough. Iran's control of the Strait of Hormuz. Well, they didn't control it before, so that gives them even more power. They could charge people for going through. The whole point of America is to control the shipping lanes of the world so we can get our fuel and our goods in travelling around the world freely. Accepting Iran's uranium enrichment, the only reason they want that is so they can have a nuclear weapon. So that can't be a goer. Lifting all sanctions, that can't be a goer while they're still, killing their people and doing what they do. Terminating all UN Security Council resolutions, paying compensation to Iran, which is extraordinary. Ending the war in Lebanon. Well, again, you stop funding Hezbollah, and Hezbollah stop firing rockets into Israel, and then Israel will stop firing rockets back into the Hezbollah-controlled areas. That seems like a fair deal. You started it, would be my response to that. But it was true. Withdrawal of all US combat forces from the region. So the Americans are going to stop being a presence in the Middle East?
Yeah, I mean, no...
Sorry?
Under no circumstances is that ever going to be agreed to.
I'm surprised that number 11 isn't, can Donald Trump hand over his firstborn grandchild? I mean, you know what I mean?
Well,
he'd probably hand over one of his children. They're not. Some of them. So I mean, Eric.
Oh, bless.
You'd probably hand over Eric, wouldn't he?
You kind of think you can't blame the kids, though, can you?
You can't blame the kids. It's not their fault.
It's not
no,
their
but
fault.
I'm just saying, these are utterly... I mean, there's no way that Netanyahu looked at this and went... And the thing about Donald Trump is I don't think he does strategic thinking. I don't think he does the depth. He doesn't do detail. He doesn't hold an idea in his head for more than 10 minutes. I'm sorry, he's not some great thinker. Please, you can vote for Trump, you can think he's right about immigration and you can all of that, but you can't think those things because there's no evidence for it. There's lots of evidence against it. But I mean, but Netanyahu is a long-term strategic thinking. I don't hold account for him. I'm not getting 7,000 shekels or anything to say this, but he knows what he's doing, and this is an existential battle for the Israelis. They get it. Iran can no longer be Israel. Iran has said we're going to, our number one aim in life is destruction of Israel.
Yeah. But therein lies the difference, is because Israel know what it is like to be under threat on a regular basis. The American states do not. I'm not suggesting that there are no threats against America.
9/11 and Pearl Harbor, that's it.
Yeah, and I'm sure that there are other threats that we don't know about that the American people do, and I'm not denying that.
No, but the American...
But they're not having missiles thrown at them.
Americans are mostly under threat by disgruntled teenagers in long leather coats who shoot up schools. No, that's the biggest threat that most Americans face. It's not actually external, and it's not the sort of terror attacks that we've had some recently on Jews.
Yes.
But it's not the sort of stuff we've seen on the scale we've seen in Europe. The routine, head teachers being beheaded on the street, and there's that. That they don't have any of that stuff.
No,
okay? They don't. They're not living with what we've got. Keir Starmer is off to the Middle East today. I mean, I don't know. So has he got the kit bag to mend HMS Dragon? Is that what he's saying? Is he, because it took a week to get it ready to go and 2 weeks to get out there?
Yeah.
The French, meanwhile, defending our RAF Akrotiri in Cyprus because we couldn't defend our own military base, even though we weren't involved in an offensive war. But he's going to be flying out to the Middle East. I'm assuming on the way he's just going to pop to Cyprus and he'll drop off that tool bag with all the spare parts for HMS Dragon. I mean, we have been exposed as having no military we're not a military player in this region. We're not a diplomatic player. We're totally out of it. We're not a proper ally of the United States. We have been exposed as absolute paper tiger.
Yeah, a complete basket case country. But why is he going out to anywhere in the region for a war that we've not been involved in, for allies we've not stuck up for, but also the negotiations that we've not been a part of?
I've read his statement. I still can't work it out.
I also don't know where he's going, and it's not been confirmed by Number 10.
Well, they often don't do that.
No, but they normally give an idea of what part of the region. Do you think everybody's sort of picking up their phone going, no thanks?
No, not us. I mean, Qatar, UAE, I don't know, at least he can get a plane. I mean,
Well, this is true. Maybe he just wants some extra sunny weather. He's missing out on a corking day here in the UK today. But what is the point of Keir Starmer?
There you are. There's your question, folks. 0344 499 1000. I'd love to know. I mean, to be fair, every day's over there. He's not bothering us.
This is true.
I'm just saying, let's be grateful for small mercies. But the only thing is, we are looking at the oil price has come down. I think it was like 17 percentage points.
Yes.
I really, at some point, need to teach people who write news the difference between percentages and percentage points. By the way, I really do worry about this. I'm such a pedant, but also your stock market's up. If you've got shares, if you've got a pension, This is good news, guys. Good news. But how long? Because as we were discussing the last hour, there is a long tail to this, which is 6 weeks of basically tankers full of oil, gas, liquid natural gas, fertilizer, not getting out of the Strait of Hormuz. And an awful lot of countries who make a lot of our cheap stuff not getting those supplies. Our aviation fuel, the Ryanair boss Michael O'Leary was warning about this in a couple of months' time.
So.
It will hit then because they're using up those supplies unless they can really double up. But we have seen some oil production facilities have actually been damaged. So.
Yeah, so we don't know what state the supply is going to be in. So there are a large number of ships waiting to come through at the moment, so that's going to take a long time to clear. We don't know how clear the strait is because there are all of the mines that have been laid and things like that. We don't know how much Iran is going to charge people because that is one of the negotiating
which they
points
weren't
as
able
well.
to do before because that's not a thing.
No, but now it is, and they're going to be charging people extortionate amounts of money unless you're a friend of theirs, I suspect.
And there'll be a big concern from a lot of these tanker companies. Well, okay, so they'll want to get their ships out if they can. But they don't necessarily want to get their ships in again. Because they don't know if they're going to be trapped there again for weeks on end, because who knows what's going to happen because of the unpredictability of both sides. It's a big concern. But, we're now looking at inflation creeping up here for everything we buy, but particularly the necessities, putting fuel in the car, heating your home. Again, from July onwards, we're looking at £300, £500 extra on our bills. After that price cap drop. Food going up and everything we buy going up. Well done, everybody.
But when you look at food inflation as well, and you think Ed Miliband also has an awful lot to answer for here by taking away farmland to turn into massive solar farms. Well, where's our food security coming from? Because it's going to get worse.
And our energy needs. Don't start me on that. I'll go off on a rant for 20 minutes.
That or bins.
Let's also talk about I want to briefly talk about the Wireless Festival, and I also want to talk about reform and one of their pledges coming out thick and fast at the moment. In fact, the Tories and reform, fascinating how much they're competing. And I would say quite a lot of the same territory at the moment. The Wireless Festival in North London cancelled. Kanye West was invited, headlining all 3 nights. People often it's a date. You don't camp at this one. It's a date. Go for a day. But he's been banned from the UK after basically a big backlash. I'm surprised that he was invited. I'm surprised that he got a visa, which had already been issued. The Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, after the Prime Minister expressed his concern, decided to ban him on the grounds of he's not conducive to the public good. Not the first time this has happened, so it won't be the last time this happens. I think we should ban more people who are not conducive to the public good. I think there's a very big difference between what you are allowed to say in terms of freedom of speech in your own country and whether or not we want to allow people to come to our country to basically preach hatred. I feel the same way about Islamist radical preachers, about white supremacists. But I've always said I think Kanye West has been given a free pass for too long because he's black. Because if he was white and he was saying the things he'd said, and he said it about black people or even about Jews, I don't think he would still have the career he's got. But he's been given a free pass, and that's how it works in the mad world. And as I was saying to Gideon Falter, the campaign against anti-Semitism yesterday, if instead of putting swastikas on T-shirts and selling them from in the Super Bowl and making money from that, instead of a song praising Hitler called Heil Hitler was the giveaway, on his album, which he's still making money from, still available. If he'd misgendered someone who was Jewish, he probably would have been banned sooner and cancelled. Because that's what gets you cancelled now, not supporting Hitler.
And he had quite clearly given us the indication of what he was over a number of years. This is not just a recent thing.
It's not one quick episode.
It's not one quick episode. 2022, I think it dates back even probably prior to that. But why is it now that he makes the apology?
Well, as we've been pointed out, he's made apologies before and then rescinded them.
Exactly.
The key thing is, if you're genuinely sorry, there's things you would do, including giving away that money to charity that you've made from...
But you wouldn't say it again either, would you?
You also wouldn't say it again, absolutely. I mean, I just got off.
If you mean
and it's really interesting because I do believe in freedom of speech, but it's not without limits. It's not without limits.
But it's not free from responsibility.
No, exactly.
And we have a responsibility to ensure that the Jewish community in our country is safe. Children don't need to listen to it.
No, exactly.
I don't need to listen to it.
I'm not Jewish, but I still don't want someone who's a big supporter of Hitler to be deified on stage. And again, he's got more influence than... As pointed out yesterday, he has more followers on social media than Jews exist in the world.
Wow.
There are only 14 million Jews in the world. He's got more influence. That's no. If you're following him because you're not that bothered by him saying, he supports what Hitler did, then I'm sorry. That is a serious. I would say that is a national security issue.
Well, absolutely is, and I don't understand why the visa was issued in the first place.
This is the thing. You worked in the Home Office.
Yeah, it would have been flagged up.
Someone's like high status, multi-millionaire. He's probably coming in on his private jet and everything. This would have been flagged up. Someone would have gone, oh, by the way.
Yeah, you know about them. It's not as if they have a normal process for visas either. They are dealt with ever so slightly
So when Shabana Mahmood goes, oh, I'm looking at this, but this is the same thing. This is the same thing as the Maccabi Tel Aviv match, where she was actually told about it and her staff were in meetings about it 10 days before she claimed that she first knew about it.
Yeah, I don't buy it. It could well have gone to one of the immigration ministers. I know there's a couple there now at the Home Office. But even so, you have those conversations quite widely. And when things came to us in the immigration department, it also went straight to the Home Secretary's department.
But someone surely would have flagged there's an issue of this guy.
Yeah,
I mean, again, if there wasn't, why were you not looking at this guy's background before you gave him his visa anyway? Let's also talk about other people who come here illegally. They don't need visas. They just get on a boat and pay 1,500 quid to a people smuggler in Calais. But Nigel Farage announced yesterday that if illegal migrants whose asylum applications have failed. I mean, not many of them. Not many of them actually go through the process, and not many get failed. They just get given leave to stay because they can't get rid of them. But at that point, they're currently being paid a maximum of £3,000 under the government under a voluntary return scheme. Yeah. Mind-blowing to a lot of us. In fact, there's also been, you remember that recently launched pilot scheme by Shabana Mahmood for failed asylum seekers getting up to £10,000 per person or £40,000 per family. They usually have more than 2 kids. They agree to return to their home country within 7 days of an application filling. So the idea is that we save all the money on the legals, we get rid of them quickly, we're not paying for the flights and all that stuff, and we're not paying for the accommodation for them. I mean, a lot of us would argue they shouldn't be in the first place. We shouldn't be paying a penny for it in the first place. It wouldn't be an issue. But there are ways of resolving this that don't involve us paying £40,000 of our money. That's more than the average income of someone who works full-time in this country. Have some money. You're not here illegally. Off you go. We'll pay you for it. I mean, you're literally creating a market for people to come here. Nigel Farage... I'm sorry. Let it go. No, I won't let it go. Nigel Farage has said if he became Prime Minister, a reformed UK government would cut the maximum paid to illegal asylum seekers to leave voluntarily down to a maximum of £1,000 if they return to their country of origin. I'm not even happy with that, but it's better than 40,000 for the family. But it's just, I think the argument is that if you pay them £1,000 and they just sod off now, then that's a better value and cheaper. But you know what? Just round them up, handcuff them, drag them up the stairs, put them on the plane and take them anyway. I'm sorry, I don't want people to get a single penny.
There's always going to be a cost attached to removing people from the country. Full stop. There is always going to be a cost attached to it. Voluntary returns, it's up to a maximum of 3,000. Doesn't mean people get 3,000. Normally it is an awful lot less than that. And to be honest, you do want them gone.
How do you decide whether someone gets 3,000 or 50 quid?
You look at the country.
You just negotiate with them.
Basically, you look at the country they're going back to. You look at if it's a sort of man in his mid-20s going back to a country where the average wage is 800 quid, then, you know...
Tough. Why don't you work hard to make your country a better place? That's what we did in this country.
Absolutely, but you just give them cash so that they can get out of the airport and they can go. And it is cheaper in the long run. You have to be able to do that. I mean,
You know what would be cheaper? Stopping them coming here in the first place. Catching them at the moment, returning them to France, going, there you go, your problem, Emmanuel. Ask your wife to... Tell you what, Brigitte Magrot, she could sort it out. Grab them by the face, put them on the plane straight away. She's got no issue with that.
No, she'd do a stunning job at that, wouldn't she? I'd be scared to be
anywhere near her. Have her in charge than Emmanuel. No, but also, you put people into not particularly pleasant but perfectly humane camps, prison camps, effectively locked up. There you are, and you can either leave at any time, or you stay in the camp, or we send you to, somewhere in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. We're not bothered which. You've got until midday to decide, make a decision, and then we'll be on our way. I'm telling you, we can have this sorted within a month. When I'm in charge, and sod the human rights lawyers. I don't. You put me in The Hague. I don't care. I do not care.
Reform are coming up with so many things at the moment that I'm losing track of which policy they're supporting at the moment when it comes to immigration. But I'm going to say that
the Tory narrowed her eyes.
Exactly.
That's fair. Your leader, Kemi Badenoch, she's now the most popular leader.
This, yeah.
I mean, easy against. I mean, Ed Davey. I mean, no offence, but Ed Davey and Keir Starmer and the Zach thing, creature.
Yes. Yeah, she's doing better than I ever gave her credit for.
I'm a big fan.
So am I, and I didn't start off from that viewpoint. I was a bit
Well, she's up to her game. I mean, what she's realised up against Nigel Farage, whom I was a good friend, I'm a big fan as well. I think that's going to become as a surprise to anybody watching, listening to this show.
You're allowed to do
that these are people. I mean, there's people I'm a fan of in the Labour Party, you know, and there's some Dems we have regular on the show because I like them. But I just think these are people who get it. But she had to up her game because, frankly, the level of energy that he has, it's 61 now, 61, 62. Basically sends everyone else to shame. Forget Ed Davey in a wetsuit.
But she's now grown into the role as well. So I think that it was a very difficult party to govern.
But all that nonsense about waiting 2 years to have any policies, that was never going to fly.
Well, that was what irritated me in the beginning. You need something to go out there with, and she's now doing it.
Well, it's going to be an interesting few years ahead, isn't it? And indeed, very interesting month ahead to those elections. 7th of May, the local elections. That's going to be very interesting to watch those results there. Let's take a quick break. Go 344 499 1000 is the number to call, and then we're going to get to your messages and calls. Some on the Iran war, who won, who didn't, and also going to be talking about the doctor strikes as well. This is Talk.
Crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royal tea from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to the Royal Tea from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the home of common sense. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. 11:31 is the time. Let's get straight to your calls. Dan's on the line in Liverpool. It's called 0344 499 1000. Dan, what do you want to say about this ceasefire between the US and Iran? Who do you think won?
I truthfully think Donald Trump is damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. So I think he should have just bit of a bullet and just done what he promised to do.
What do you mean by that?
I believe that in World War II, we had to do what we did to Germany for the greater good.
You mean Donald Trump should have carried on and gone further?
Yep.
Do you have a dog in this fight? Do you feel strongly about this, and a particular reason why?
Yeah, I'm half Iranian, so from my father's side, I think the mullahs of Iran, unfortunately, we have too many people in this country and across the Western Hemisphere who are too leftist and too... I'm not going to call them bad people. I think some of them do generally come from a good place.
They're ignorant,
but
though.
They're too naive and ignorant to understand that during war...
What that regime is like and the threat it poses. Do you have family members at all still in Iran, or is your whole family here?
I have a few family members in Iran. My father and grandfather had to escape after the fall of the Shah.
Yep.
Otherwise, they would have been hung. So my grandfather and my dad really don't have any qualms about whatever happens to this regime.
Yeah. But when Donald Trump was talking about, bombing them back to the Stone Age and destroying the civilization, I mean, that would have been a big worry for, everyone in Iran, even people, and we know a huge number of people don't support the regime.
I understand that, and I can say that truthfully for me, if I was in Iran right now, I'd be more than happy to give my life for the greater good of the UK and the US. Maybe that's just my opinion, and I could be completely wrong.
Yeah.
But for me, I think it's going to have to be a little bit like the story of the Phoenix. Iran has to fall and burn, maybe, so it can rise from the better ashes.
But you think the US and Israel should carry on?
Yep, I think they should carry on. And I think Starmer, unfortunately, has shown his loyalty, and it's not to the Western nation. The word traitor gets passed around so much now, and I know Jeremy Kyle had someone on earlier. He had a video play where he even called him a traitor. At what point do we actually hold our leaders accountable, or is it just going to be he retires, sells a book deal, makes millions, and there's no true accountability?
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more on that front. Exactly, it's just he hasn't got a policy, he hasn't chosen the right position. He just sort of shilly-shallied until he sort of didn't have to make a decision anymore. And anyway, we couldn't have offered any proper practical help as far as we can tell. Dan, thank you. Really interesting call. Thank you. David is in Coventry. David, you would rather talk about those doctor strikes, day 2 of the 15th strike by these resident doctors.
I wish to take exception to something Dr. Carol Sikora said.
Yep.
This is something which I never thought I would do. I listened to him throughout the pandemic, and I heard nothing but words of wisdom from him. But in what he said this morning, part of what he said was totally wrong. He said that the NHS is in trouble now because of over 70s.
Yeah.
The NHS is not in trouble for over 70s. When I left work at age 17 on a Friday, started work on a Monday, and I've worked constantly ever since. I'm in my 70s now, and I'm still working by choice.
Most people aren't, though, in their 70s.
By choice.
Yeah.
But Dr. Carol Sikora said it was our fault that the NHS was in trouble. He's wrong.
Well, he wasn't really. He was a bit tongue-in-cheek. He was saying people like him, it's elderly people. The elderly people use the NHS services far more, and we're all living longer, and so we're all eventually going to be using the NHS more.
My point is more simple than that. You cannot bring 20 to 25 million people into a country over a period of 20 years who've never paid a bean into the system and expect the system to continue to function. Mass immigration has been the primary cause of the problems with the NHS. Quite simply, you cannot bung that number of people into a small country like this and expect it to function.
I agree with you. One of my main arguments against mass immigration, I don't think the numbers have been that high, but there was well over 10 million. I mean, it's been a few million in the last couple of years, last 3 years. I agree with you. And again, I live in London, and I've had to go various medical treatment and with family members. And basically, it's about you can hear people speaking, people clearly not being British from the accents or the languages they're speaking to each other. And again, people say that it is immigrants who are basically staffing the NHS. No, actually, it's a very small percentage in most parts of the country, but certainly in terms of drawing on the NHS. Nevertheless, it is when people are older that they rely on the NHS more from wherever their background.
but we have been fed so many lies by the politicians of the Uni Party and by the mainstream media. BBC I watched a bit of news on the BBC yesterday. I turned it off because I thought I'm not getting anything like the truth here.
Yeah.
It's just a simple fact of life. We are in a total mess, and hopefully Nigel will win the next election. If he doesn't, I don't know where we're going to go as a country. I think we're probably finished.
Okay, strong words there from David. Appreciate that. 11:37 is the time. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to tell you more about a competition, and we're going to be talking a bit more about that 2-week ceasefire with Iran and that cancellation of the Wireless Festival. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back. This is Talk, the home of common sense, 11:39 time. Claire Pearsall is still with me. Well, we did have a Labour commentator we were hoping to speak to. I think this is one of those post-Easter holidays, chocolate burnout, sunshine is out there. Unfortunately, can't get the tech up on that, so I do apologise. But, you and I can keep, certainly we can keep having a chat. We were talking a little bit earlier about the doctors' strikes, and it's interesting that call we just had from that was from David, wasn't it?
Yeah.
He said, again, he's like me. I mean, Carol Sikora, absolute star during lockdown, during COVID, and talking sensible. People, who knew about all these people not getting treated for cancer? Well, he was talking about it in April 2020, very early on. Yeah. He was on my show talking about it, and has been basically proven right about everything. But he was saying the problems we've got the NHS, because we had a general chat about the strikes. Doctors are under a lot of pressure. They're all stressed out. We've got financial pressures. We keep throwing money at the NHS, huge amounts of money. But there are more treatments. There are more drugs. You invent your fat jabs. Great, that's another load of money to spend drugs on. Although pay for them yourselves. If you're not buying your takeaways to get yourself that fat, you can afford your Ozempics and your Wegovys and your Manjaros, as far as I'm concerned. But he said, look, it's us. He says, including himself, it's us over 70s. We're the problem. We're getting older. I do understand David's point that, as he was just saying, that actually no, we've had this massive wave of immigration. Although a small percentage of those people are working in the NHS. I guess we've got as doctors and radiologists and nurses and cleaners and goodness knows what, and GPs. However, the vast majority of them are potential patients in the NHS, but we did not, like with housing, we didn't build any extra houses or any extra schools or any extra roads or any extra car parks or put on any extra buses. We didn't build any extra hospitals to allow for 10 million plus more people being in the country. Does he have a point?
I think he does have a point. You can't put more into the system without expanding the system, but it's not about just putting money into it, because as we've seen, the NHS can't manage the money that it has well enough anyway. IT systems, my local doctor's surgery had to put out a message yesterday saying that couldn't deal with any appointments because the IT infrastructure in North Kent had gone down.
To be fair, that could happen. That happens at international banks like HSBC.
But then if you had GPs sitting there and you were allowed to phone in and speak to somebody, you could go round the IT system, but they weren't even allowing that. So the whole system...
Because it's not working, we're all going to take the day off.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean,
that's where it's wrong.
There is, I mean, certainly any dealing with any admin, and I've told a million stories about, family members who've gone in and 6 people are booked in at the same time for a particular bit of surgery, cataract or whatever, and 3 of them, their notes aren't there. They haven't got any notes there, so they haven't been sent forward. So the practicalities of getting, you go for a scan, and when I get the results, all right, sometime in the next 2 weeks. Yeah. Why doesn't someone look at it today? I mean, let's pay someone to stay on duty till 8 p.m. and just get it all moving. And a lot of it is down to, I would say, third world admin. We are literally employing people who are just literally like, I don't care. They come from a culture, they go, I don't care. They don't, And I'm sorry, we do have that issue. But I think a lot of the issues also, I really do think we've got a load of snowflake doctors now. People who are going, you've got a family member who's a nurse and talk about nurses training, and they're like, I don't want to actually, don't actually do anything. I don't want to clean up someone's vomit or anything like that. Don't want to do any of the dirty work, because they've got, they're just expecting a bit of an easier life. And I think a lot of our young people going into these professions, I don't think doctors should be doing as my mum did when she was trained, 72-hour weekend shifts without any guaranteed sleep. You did get some sleep in a bunk bed occasionally, in a darkened room in the corner.
That's dangerous.
But you were woken up by the matron when you were needed. But basically, I don't think that's the way to live. But the idea of that, GPs train, 7 years and 250 grand it costs us for each doctor training, and then years of training to become a GP, and then you work a 3-day week. I know you want your work-life balance, but they're doing it when they've got teenagers. When both couples, they're 2 couples who are married and doctors. I'm sorry, I'm not entirely sure there are some jobs. I was a political editor of a national newspaper. I didn't want to work on Saturdays for a Sunday newspaper anymore because I wanted to be with my family. So I left that job. I didn't go, bend the whole system around me. Because I would like to spend more time with my family. I don't want to do a 70-hour week anymore. I've got a baby. And I want to be a proper mum. And I made those choices. But I didn't expect the system and spend around me. And I do think there's a lot of people now, particularly the feminisation of medical qualifications. It's great. Loads more women are being doctors. Great. But then saying, I want to be a doctor, but I also want to have a lovely work-life balance. I want to be at home at 4 o'clock for my kids. Sorry, I'm not sure that works.
No, it really doesn't. But this is where the NHS hasn't kept up with modern life, because it is still very much an 8 till 4 or 8 till 5 process, and not open at weekends, because you're not allowed to be sick on weekends or a bank holiday.
And then they tell you off for going to A&E.
Exactly. But some people are going to fall ill on a Friday night.
How very dare they?
Morning. And I've had that when my son was very little, and it was sort of the early hours of Sunday morning when he was really, really poorly. You need some advice.
Yeah, they're still dealing with Saturday nights drunkards at that point.
Oh, and of course the 111 service just told me to take him to A&E.
111 will always tell you say I've stubbed my toe, go to A&E, because they cover themselves legally like that. So it's an utter waste of time.
It is an utter waste of time. But the pharmacist in my local chemist was very, very helpful with the small child, because sometimes all you need is to talk to somebody. So the NHS isn't really fit for purpose, but it hasn't been for some time, and I don't think all of the blame is on migration on that front.
No, exactly. Very interesting. Oh, right. Let me tell you about the chance to win a life-changing £20,000 completely tax-free here on Talk. That's £20,000 straight into your bank account. Spend it, save it, splash it. I don't know. Get private healthcare insurance. That might be a good way of spending it. It's entirely up to you. Here's how you could be in with a chance to win.
For your chance to win, text TALK to 83338. Texts cost £2.50 plus your standard network rate. Or call 0343 418 7260. Lines close 9th of April 2026, 4 p.m. That's when you'll need to answer your phone if it rings. 18 plus, UK residents only. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at talk.tv/win. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 83338 now.
And a very good luck to that for you with that. Now, we're going to take a quick break. Then we're going to be talking to a former Ukrainian government advisor, Cormac Smith, regular on the show, of course, since the Ukrainian war, about J.D. Vance, the US Vice President's trip to Hungary ahead of the elections on Sunday, when Viktor Orban is hoping to win yet another term in office. But what on earth is J.D. Vance doing there? And what should we read into this? And what has he been saying about Ukraine? We'll talk about that up next. Stay tuned. This is Talk.
The Crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royal tea from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to the Royal Tea from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. 11:49 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Claire Pearsall is also still with me. Delighted to be joined now by Cormac Smith. He's a former Ukrainian government advisor and a former senior cabinet office civil servant specialising in Russian disinformation, which will help explain what we're going to be talking about with you next. Good morning to you, Cormac.
Julia, good morning. It's lovely to see you.
Thank you very much for joining us. Now, we've spoken to you many, many times since the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and many times about where we are in terms of supporting the Ukrainians, where the Americans are, the Donald Trump stance. On a day when everyone has been talking very much about what's been going on in the Middle East and what's been going on in Iran, Lebanon as well, it's interesting to focus just briefly on the show on what has been going on in Hungary, because we've got a presidential election on Sunday. Viktor Orban is looking for, I think it's a fifth term in office. He's very much a Trump ally. He's been rather much a sort of spoke in the works in terms of the Europeans, in terms of dealing with with Vladimir Putin. But interestingly, the US Vice President J.D. Vance has chosen to go on a visit to Hungary this week. Can you tell us what the purpose of the visit has been and how controversial it has already been?
Well, look, the purpose of the visit is quite simply to try and boost Viktor Orban's chances in the forthcoming election. And, you know, it was only yesterday that, with no evidence whatsoever, J.D. Vance accused Ukraine of meddling in of trying to meddle in the election at the same time that he was there to interfere in the election. So, you know, if this wasn't so despicable and egregious, it would be laughable. But Julia, the thing I want to say this morning is I think most of us are waking up a little bit too late. I hope we're waking up now. J.D. Vance gave us a very clear signal, not this February, but February 2025, when he visited the Munich Security Conference and he berated Europe's leaders. And where did he go straight after that speech? Did he go to see the Chancellor of the Federal Republic? No, he went to see the leader of Alternative for Deutschland, the far-right party, which is also, of course, aligned closely with Putin. So, you know, then only 10 months later, the beginning of December, and I put something out at the time, the beginning of December, the United States published their national security strategy, in which they made it very, very clear that Europe was in their sights also. They talked about, in their view, how Europe is in danger of civilizational decline. And they
This is sort of about mass uncontrolled immigration and this whole idea.
Yes, but importantly, the line that I picked up was they talked about being encouraged by the rise of what they called patriotic parties, and said that they would do everything they could to encourage those parties. Now, by patriotic, we don't mean Keir Starmer's Labour government, or indeed Kemi Badenoch's Tory opposition. I think we know in this country it would be Nigel Farage. In Hungary, which is the only European country where they are actually in power, maybe apart from the Czech Republic, he means Viktor Orban. But equally, we would be talking about Marie Le Pen in France, Alternative for Deutschland in Germany, and Geert Wilders.
And yet, lumping all these in together, it's one of the things I would leap to defensive reform on this issue. Which is, you know, the AfD in Germany. I absolutely understand why many Germans have turned to alternative parties, given their abject failures of them on net zero and on mass immigration under Merkel all those years as well. But actually, AfD is a pretty nasty party with some really quite horrible views, in my view. We've got some very big issues with Marine Le Pen's party and her views. State over many years, they've changed, they say, but, who knows? But again, I understand the frustration of people who vote for these parties, but it doesn't mean all these parties, they're not all the same. They have very, very different viewpoints, but they're all lumped together on one side. But this is the thing. J.D. Vance is being regarded as, handpicked by the president, Donald Trump, when he, as vice president, basically to be the future of the party. Donald Trump can't stand legally, constitutionally, for a third term, although he still talks about this occasionally, that J.D. Vance is the future. He's made it very clean. He's aligned himself fully with the MAGA, aligned himself, with the likes of Tucker Carlson, who even Donald Trump has disowned. Big question marks, a lot of them online about whether Tucker Carlson is getting funding from various questionable regimes in the Middle East, and very pro-Putin. This is the thing I don't understand, is that J.D. Vance is obviously appealing to a certain MAGA crowd. We get that, and he wants to be associated with a victory of election. But this interfering such by American leadership doesn't tend to work out very well. Obama, said he wasn't going to interfere and then did interfere when it came to the Brexit referendum. That didn't work out very well for him. He was completely ignored. He actually boosted the Leave vote with his comments about us going to the back of the queue. Is this going to work out well for him, or is he so sure that Viktor Orban's going to win that it's fine?
Well, Julia, I can only say that I hope it's not going to work out. I'm going to point out one more thing specific to Ukraine. It's been very, very clear. America has withdrawn almost all support for Ukraine.
Yep.
They now will sell weapons to Europe, for Europe to give to Ukraine. And J.D. Vance and his boss, Donald Trump, have made it very clear that Ukraine is our problem to deal with. Viktor Orban has been consistently doing everything in his power as a member of both NATO and the EU to frustrate our efforts to support Ukraine, and has recently been blocking the 90 million euro loan to buy armaments. And so why is J.D. Vance coming over specifically to support and to try and ensure the exact words I wrote down that he told a crowd he was giving a speech to? We have got to ensure that Viktor Orban is re-elected as president of Hungary, don't we? So I think the big glaring elephant in the room here that we've got to focus on is the links between the Kremlin and the Trump White House.
And this has been a
compromat or whatever it is. And also the fact that in that same national security strategy, it lays out very clearly the new world order envisaged by America now is great powers and spheres of influence, which will be America, China, and Russia, possibly joined by India and possibly joined by Japan, to replace the G7, and not a single European country or the EU have a place at that table.
But to be fair, we've put ourselves, but Cormac, we've put ourselves in that position by not being able to provide our own defence, relying on America too long, and being too mealy-mouthed and unwilling and wringing our hands rather than taking action. So, we've brought that on ourselves, and you earn your place at the table. But yet, I'm massively concerned about the hold that Vladimir Putin clearly has over Donald Trump for whatever reason, whether it's just admiration or is there compromat. But again, how that does spill over into international affairs, into what happens in Ukraine, into what happens in the Middle East as well. But those comments you mentioned earlier, that J.D. Vance, she talked about how, the Ukrainians were basically behind misinformation and election interference, when we know absolutely that the Russians were the ones who've been blatant and open in doing that, as have the Chinese, North Koreans and the Iranians as well. J.D. Vance he's a clever guy. He's an exceptionally clever man. He knows what he's doing. He's not doing this by accident. It's not ignorance. That is something to worry about.
And it's not, could I say one more thing? He's absolutely agree with you. And what he is doing is not in Europe's interest. Now, I am no fan of Donald Trump. And when he was elected almost 2 years ago now, when he was actually elected, a year and a half ago, I went out and said that if there was one silver lining only, it would be that it would force Europe to stand up and take our responsibility for defending ourselves. I believe we're at a point now, and we are way behind here in the United Kingdom as in other countries. We literally are going to need to spend twice at least.
At least.
What we are currently spending on defense, because we can say goodbye to America as a reliable security partner. They are gone. We are in their sights. We are not at the table. And if you're not at the table, you are on the menu.
Yeah, so, very, very good point. Cormac, we'll have to leave it there. Very, very worrying words. Cormac Smith, former Ukrainian government advisor, used to work at the Cabinet Office looking at Russian disinformation. Claire Pearsall, your response to all of that?
I think Cormac's absolutely right. And what is concerning is meddling in another country's set of elections, especially the ones that are only due to place on Sunday.
I mean, Viktor Orban wants to divide him, but people want to be influenced by that. I just think about JD Vance. JD Vance does detail. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah, he does.
This will be about what's going on with the MAGA crowd back at home. But I mean, again, it's a serious concern. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but Donald Trump's attitude to Putin, it just doesn't make sense.
No, it really doesn't.
I'll tell you what we're going to ask about this. Actually, is that Lord Dannatt, Richard Dannatt, is the former head of the British Army, and he's our next guest. So we'll get to him. I want to hear from you as well. 0344 499 1000. In particular about who actually won this war in Iran. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon indeed. This is Talk with the Home of Common Sense. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Thank you so much for joining me. Whether you're listening on DAB Plus radio or on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or your connected device, I don't know, the older working from home on the sunniest, warmest day of the year so far, you enjoy it. You've earned it. You've earned it. You try and get some work done. Anyway, it's great to have you join me. If you have missed anything of the show, don't forget to go to my YouTube page, the Julia Hartley-Brewer Show. Hit the subscribe. You never have to miss a thing. Coming up, we're going to be talking more about, the declaration by the American president today that today is a big day for world peace. He has declared that there has been a complete victory for the Americans in the Iran conflict. But interestingly, so have the Iranians. So who actually won this war? And will this 2-week ceasefire continue? Certainly JD Vance, the American vice president, who's been on a trip to Hungary, has said this is very much a fragile peace at the moment. But will the Strait of Hormuz be reopened? Will we see oil prices continuing to go down? Will we see inflation going down? We'll talk about all of that. We're going to talk about how to deal with illegal migrants, trying to get them to leave the country voluntarily, currently paid up to for some exceptions, £10,000 a person. Well, Reform UK have said they'll take that down to £1,000. But why are we paying them a single sodding penny, I would ask you? Plus, Angela Rayner, remember her? The former Deputy Prime Minister, she brought in that employment rights bill. Well, the Workers' Rights Police are going to have the power to force their way into offices under Labour's new employment laws. That's going to work out well, isn't it? More people with lanyards coming into your building without your permission. I want to hear from you today, in particular, about the Iran conflict and this 2-week ceasefire with Iran. Both sides claiming victory. What is your reaction? Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. Text the word TALK in your message to 87222. Get in touch on X at Talk TV. Calls are charged at the national rate and text cost £1, standard network rate message. Joining me for the whole show is Claire Pissell, former Conservative Government Advisor. Afternoon, once again to you. I'm going to go straight to my first guest in this hour right now, because I know he has to be away by certain times. So I want to make sure I get as much time with him as possible. And the perfect guest to have on a day like today, it's Richard Lord Dallet, former head of the British Army. A very good afternoon to you, sir.
Julia, a very good afternoon to you as well, and a very fine afternoon to you too.
Absolutely. Well, look, 2-week ceasefire, both sides claiming victory. Who actually won, if anyone?
Well, I think winning and losing, it's a very fine line. I would categorise this as a very expensive away score draw, which both sides can actually take some positives from. It was incredible over the last couple of days listening to Donald Trump's rhetoric and what he was planning to do to Iran. And one had to say to oneself, is he really going to do that? Or is he going to pull up at the last minute?
Did you think at any point he would, bomb them back to the Stone Age, destroy their civilization?
No, I didn't. And I'm not even terribly sure it's within their capability to do that. Yes, they could have done a lot of damage, but I think even the photographs that we saw on international media yesterday of civilians lining bridges, standing around other infrastructure sites, that just said this is just not going to happen, and nor should it happen. And the conversation about attacking civilian targets constituting a war crime. Donald Trump might well have shrugged it off. He might well have said to himself, I'm the President of the United States, the law doesn't apply to me. Well, frankly, the law applies to everyone. And I think he's...
Although America doesn't sign up to any of the international courts, and there is that argument that actually if it's dual use, an energy plant or a bridge that enables the Iranian military, that it wouldn't be a war crime. But certainly once you've got, children lining up on bridges, I mean, the language itself, again, I agree with you. I mean, I didn't think he'd go ahead with it. But do you think that his language, his bombastic threats, is it likely that brought the Iranians to the table, or actually did it just make everything rather more dangerous?
Well, he certainly made his position very clear, and I think the Iranians were quite sensible to listen to it. But I think one mustn't underestimate the role that Pakistan has played in this. Perhaps you could say a slightly surprising mediator, but they appear to have played a positive role. And it has given an off-ramp both to the Americans and also to the Iranians. Now, what we're going to have to do is watch very closely over the next 2 weeks to see what does and does not happen. The obvious litmus test is whether the Straits of Hormuz will be opened, whether tankers will start to flow through, and that'll have some effect on the world economy, if not immediately, then over time. Yeah. But I think the other, I don't want to use the expression joker in the pack, but I think the other front we have to look at is Israel's insistence that it is not going to stop its attack on Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. And I think that's an interesting exception that the Israelis have made for themselves.
Well, I mean, perfectly reasonable. I mean, that's a completely separate issue from, I know Hezbollah are funded and aided by, and basically dreamt up by the Iranians. But at the end of the day, the threat from Hezbollah to Israeli residents in northern Israel is unacceptable to any nation state.
And it's been unacceptable for a long time. And undoubtedly, the Israelis have taken every opportunity last year and more recently to degrade Hezbollah's capability. But I think I only raised that in the context of this ceasefire to see whether, in fact, that might be a factor which will contribute to the breaking down of this ceasefire, which, taking the widest possible view, is not in the world's interest to see this ceasefire breaking down.
Is it
So hope over the 2-week period that there can be some grounds for a more lasting settlement.
Well, indeed, and a more lasting settlement based on I suppose it's going to have to be, if it's a ceasefire, rather than total, annihilation or obliteration of the Iranian regime. If there is still, a regime there to negotiate with, as it appears to be, then there's going to be give and take on both sides. And I hold no candle to Donald Trump's claimed negotiating prowess. I don't think there's really much evidence for that at all. Gaza hostages, yes, but on every other area, Ukraine, elsewhere, not entirely sure. But we've got a 10-point peace plan, which apparently, from Iran, apparently is the basis for the start of talks, and even Washington has said this is going to be the basis for talks. Commitment to non-aggression, control of the Strait of Hormuz to Iran, which they didn't have before, accepting Iran's uranium enrichment, lifting all sanctions and lifting all UN Security Council resolutions. So basically they can make money from charging boats going through the strait. They can carry on enriching uranium, building a nuclear facility. They can carry on earning money through oil and gas trade, paying compensation to Iran, which sounds utterly bizarre, and US combat forces withdrawing from the region, and also cessation of war in Lebanon. I mean, I think there's, maybe one of those, termination of all border governors' resolutions, maybe. All of those are utterly unacceptable, are they not, to the Americans, surely?
Yes, I would agree with that. I think that complete list is a wish list for the Iranians. And of course, if it were to be accepted, there is then no doubt at all as to who are the clear winners of this conflict. And it would be Iran on the basis of that 10-point plan. So that is just not going to happen. But I think one's got to look at this dispassionately and actually ask the question, is the world better off? Has America made any progress over the last 6 weeks? Or in fact, is the situation where we are today worse for America than it was six weeks ago? And it's quite hard to argue yourself to the alternative. Yeah. That the situation has deteriorated, that although the Americans have talked about making great progress and achieving their target hits and all the rest of it, frankly, it's left them in a pretty sorry state, and their reputation absolutely in tatters in the wider Gulf area.
And this is the thing, but it has been fascinating to see the Arab Gulf states basically completely aligning themselves with America and Israel, basically wanting this threat from Iran to be gone. But then also facing the threat, the threat from, it's all very well, US threat to Iran, we're going to obliterate you, but then that threat back from Iran to energy plants, energy production, and also water desalination plants, absolutely vital for life to exist in many Gulf states. So, I mean, the cost to anyone, Israel or the Arab states in the Middle East, way beyond what we're going to face with higher prices at the pumps. Do you think that the world that it was the right thing to do, whether it was this was correctly and strategically wise in terms of not securing the strait first and the rhetoric from Donald Trump, but was the actual act of attempting to take out Iran's military, particularly nuclear capability in the future, is that a worthwhile aim? Is that a justifiable aim?
Well, you have to go right back to the start when we were asking ourselves, what is the strategic objective? Yeah. Or what are the strategic objectives here? And I think there were three right at the outset, two of which are moderately achievable and may well have been achieved. One was to deny Iran having a nuclear weapon capability. Yeah. Second was to degrade their ballistic missile development and usage capability. Probably those two have been substantially achieved. The third, of course, was this loose idea of regime change. Well, I think everybody said that you're not going to achieve that from the sky. Yeah. Certainly that hasn't happened. I think the interesting thing to watch in the future is to see what the effect on the mass of the Iranian people is going to be as a result of all this. I mean, there was significant opposition, very much suppressed opposition in Iran to the Ayatollah's regime. I think the intervention of the United States in the way that they have acted will have probably hardened many people's attitude against the US, yeah, and probably more in support of their regime. But I think we'll have to watch it over time just to see whether the IRGC really does still have the iron grip that it's had, yeah, in the past, whether they are willing to, if people come out on the streets, to murder another 20, 30, 40,000, such as they did at the beginning of this year, or not.
That's going to be the big test.
The attitude of the people of Iran is going to be very interesting to watch over the course of the next few weeks and months.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of where we go now, we've got a big impact coming down the line, as many countries do economically. We've also had, well, I suppose, you know, a reality check here in the UK about our diplomatic and military prowess in the world. Our Prime Minister Keir Starmer is off to the Gulf today. We don't know where yet, but he's going to probably pop up somewhere, wants to be involved in the talks about this ceasefire. HMS Dragon, I don't know whether he's dropping off spare parts for it, but apparently it's after a week getting it ready, 2 weeks sailing to the to Cyprus to protect our RAF base there that had already been attacked. We had to resort to the French defending us. The ship has had to return to port for maintenance. I mean, we've been exposed as, frankly, something of an irrelevance in all of this, haven't we? How dangerous is that for Britain's future?
Well, I think it's very damaging. I think it's embarrassing. But I'm afraid on the military side, it was entirely predictable. For how long have people like me and other commentators, people who have spent a lifetime in the military, how long have we been saying that we have seriously underfunded defence effectively since the end of the Cold War? Successive governments of both major parties have taken peace dividend after peace dividend, and we've hollowed our armed forces and been exposed cruelly in the case of the Royal Navy over the last couple of months. Whether or not it was the right thing to have sent an aircraft carrier, there wasn't one available. Whether or not it was the right thing to send a Type 45 air defence destroyer, there wasn't one available. Now, HMS Dragon, which was in refit anyway, or in a maintenance period, was hurried out of Portsmouth and sent off to the Mediterranean. And clearly, all the work on it has not been finished. So once again, these Type 45s, which are potentially extraordinarily capable warships, have proved themselves to be unreliable. And again, I'm afraid it comes down to some poor decision-making in the Ministry of Defence and huge underfunding of our defence capability. How many more wake-up calls do we require? Not many more, I would suggest.
Yes, absolutely. It's really been good to talk to you. Thank you so much, Lord Dannett, as a former head of the British Army. Thank you very much again. Claire Pissell, he's been saying an awful lot of that stuff on this show again and again and again. I can't think of a former Defence Secretary, a former head of the Army, the Navy, the Royal Air Force, anyone, the senior figures who hasn't been saying that. We've just been exposed. And again, Keir Starmer, he wants to be involved in all the talking, the diplomacy. You know what? You get involved with that when you've got economic might and military might. You need to have one or preferably both. Now, America's got both. China's got both. Russia has an awful lot because of its oil and gas supplies as well. You need to be a player to be at the table. We're not players anymore, and that has been a deliberate decision over many years by politicians, Tories and Labour, to just basically say, we don't want to be the world's policeman. We don't want to ally ourselves with America on this. We're just going to go quietly, and just keep our head down. But you don't get the option.
No, you don't. And it's a really dangerous experiment to think that you can get away with that and have nothing to back it up with. But successive governments have never understood the amount of money that you need to spend, the investment that you need to make, and it's almost immediate. And it is a lot of money.
It's more than nurses cost. A frigate or a destroyer or a
these
warship.
Things are incredibly expensive.
They take a very long time.
And they do take a very long time, but we are so bad at the recruitment process for personnel, but also just the procurement process for these ships. Do we not remember when Tony Blair ordered some aircraft carriers that when they came, they weren't big enough and they couldn't take the jets, kind of jets that
the jets couldn't take off them.
Because we
but how does that even happen? I mean, I've had enough building work done over the years, and I was no, but I want the washing machine. It needs to be here because otherwise you can't open the door. You know what I mean? And there are times when you find yourself going, I've explained this 15 times and I don't understand why this has all gone wrong. But surely everyone involved in procuring this amazingly expensive high-tech stuff knows what they're doing, and yet ends up costing 3 times as much, takes 3 times as long, doesn't work when it arrives, and is already out of date by the time it arrives. Well, you know what? That's no longer going to be an option because we are facing the threat of America pulling out the NATO umbrella, that umbrella closing down. Oh, you think the French and the Germans are going to be able to defend, with their current forces, what's going on in Europe? We'll have to be back there again. We've got the threat from Iran. We've got the threat from Russia. They don't even pretend they're not threatening us. They say it openly. The threat from China, economically, cyber espionage, cyber attacks. I mean, we've got Russian jets and Russian ships, patrolling around our nation, around our island state, checking where our cables are for our communications, where the pipelines, the gas lines. I mean, come on. I mean, this is literally like someone standing in front of you, punching you in the face repeatedly, and you going, no, I think I'm fine. We're not fine. And it's so frustrating. And then we've got the Prime Minister. He's right now somewhere on, Blair Force One or whatever we call it. He's flying out. I was always in favour. We're a first world country. We should have our own. Our Prime Minister should fly by private jet. I'm sorry, I've never had an issue with that. For God's sake, have some self-respect, people. Some two-bit banana republic in Caribbean or in Africa. They've got gold-plated, give the man a private jet so he can get some useful work done. He's going out to the Gulf. God knows where he's going to pop up. God knows what use he's going to be to anybody. They're all going, literally, this is like, some random second cousin of yours or maiden aunt insisting on coming to stay to help you out, when you've, I don't know, you've had a new baby. I'm going to come and help you out. They're no use at all. No. They haven't got a clue. They've got no negotiating skills. Look what they did with the doctors, for goodness sake. They've got no knowledge of the area. They've got no military prowess. They've got no diplomatic prowess. We haven't got any ins. It's an embarrassment. It's going to be an embarrassment to have him there, and he's going to do some pompous conversation about how what we want is peace. No, I don't want peace, mate. I want safety.
Yes.
And sometimes being safe, Winston Churchill wasn't a warmonger.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes you have to go to war, and we didn't back up our ally. I just find the whole thing so... I don't trust the pygmies who lead us anymore. And I'm not a warmonger, I'm not gung-ho. I'm just saying you need to have leaders who get it. And he doesn't get it.
No, he really doesn't. And all he'll use it for is a photo opportunity, a soundbite Paul clip that everybody can go, that was awful.
He thinks he's had a good war, and his PR and his useless people in Number 10, they think this is helping them in the local elections because he hasn't sided against Iran, really. He hasn't stayed with the big Satan in America, and he thinks that this is going to help him in the war. In fact, most people look at him going, what? You're irrelevant.
Most people are looking at the price of petrol at the pumps or diesel and saying, you haven't helped us in the slightest. It's now costing me twice as much to put some fuel into my car.
It is really that simple. Stop. And again, it comes back to Donald Trump. You don't have to kowtow. You don't have to do that awful, embarrassing thing where everyone goes, this awful cabinet meetings where everyone goes, and this is thanks. Pete Hegseth, the War Secretary, when he did his last speech, and but talking about how they rescued those 2 airmen, and it was an amazing, wonderful. I mean, amazing. All credit to them. Maybe shouldn't have lost them in the first place. Just throwing that out there. But they went and got them. They got them back alive, and that is great. And an amazing ability to do that. But this whole evidence wouldn't have happened without the leadership of the brilliant Donald Trump and on his amazing decision and blah 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 blah. I mean, they're talking about him like people talk about Kim Jong-un. Like people talk about Putin, this is weird. It is weird. And even Marco Rubio, who's a grown-up in the room, he does it. So J.D. Vance plays along. Pete Hegseth has literally got his tongue so far up Donald Trump's bottom. I mean, he can't taste anything else. I'm sorry. It's repulsive to watch. And you don't have to have Trump derangement syndrome to go, no normal person needs that level of flattery. It's not good for you. No, it's not really healthy, and certainly not in a democracy. He's not a little emperor. He's not the Messiah, he's a very naughty boy. He's not the Messiah. No, but that's the thing, and he's not. And I think there are loads of good things that Donald Trump has done. I think there are some bad things he's done. I don't rate him as a human being, but he's done some good things, and he's got more mettle, and I'm still glad that he is in power and not Kamala Harris or Joe Biden. The world is a safer place with him. But when he goes off in this mad rhetoric, when he doesn't do detail, when he demands this level of flattery, and he clearly isn't paying attention to some of the grown-ups in the room who know stuff, that scares the hell out of me. And we don't have we don't have a Prime Minister who can whisper into the ear, and a Tony Blair who was able to actually offers some sense, you know, with the Iraq War and the like. And I know, look, he went along. I still think he was right with the Iraq War. I think the Iran conflict was right. They didn't carry it out in the right strategically.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's an unhealthy place to be for the president to have everybody saying how wonderful he is at all times and no one challenging any of the decisions that are being made. Why is nobody stopping him from putting stuff out on social media in the middle of the night?
Stop swearing.
Stop swearing.
And don't threaten,
capital letters.
Don't threaten to do something that would be a war crime. Yeah.
No, and no one is challenging that behaviour. Nobody. There's no filter. No. It is just him, and that is not a good place to be. But sometimes I wonder
who's more embarrassing, Donald Trump or Keir Starmer?
Well,
do you know what I mean?
This is thin line.
Just saying. 12:23 is the time. Tell you what, actually, we're going to do the competition reading, then we're going to get to your calls after that. We are giving you the chance to win a life-changing £20,000, completely tax-free, here on Talk. Or maybe if Keir Starmer won this, he could buy some missiles. £20,000 straight into your bank account. Spend it, save it, splash it. It's entirely up to you. Here's how you could be in with a chance to win.
For your chance to win, text TALK to 83338. Texts cost £2.50 plus your standard network rate. Or call 0343 418 7260. Lines close 9th of April 2026, 4 p.m. That's when you'll need to answer your phone if it rings. 18 plus, UK residents only. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at talk.tv/win. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 83338 now.
Very good luck to you. 12:24 is the time. This is Talk. We'll get your calls up next.
Crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royal tea from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to the royal tea from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good afternoon. Welcome back to the show. 12:27 is the time. Just to let you know, they've just had a statement on Truth Social from Donald Trump saying there will be no uranium enrichment under the peace plan that would be agreed. And so quite a few points with Iran, quite a few points have already been agreed. We'll keep you up to date on that. Also, to let you know, the BBC, according to a statement we've just had from the Executive Complaints Unit, get them at the BBC. The BBC did breach its editorial standards by broadcasting a racial slur during the BAFTA Film Awards ceremony back in February. This was, of course, when the Tourette's campaigner John Davidson, who was at the ceremony because the film about his life was actually up for awards, he involuntarily, because he's got Tourette's, shouted a racial slur, the N-word, at two actors, Michael B. Jordan and Delroy Lindo, as they were presenting one of the categories. They walked up on stage as two black men to have someone shouting the N-word, which you could imagine utterly unacceptable. Except in the context, of course, that someone who's saying it wasn't meaning it as a racial slur and wasn't intending in any way to be aggressive or to cause any hurt or offence. But it was a breach of editorial standards. It does seem to me to be one of those things where, rather too predictable and a failure to act. And it was kept on they had a delay on it. I think that by a couple of hours they could easily have edited it out, but also they could certainly have taken it down from their streaming, which was still available on iPlayer for quite some time. Claire Pearsall, your thoughts on that? Because I can completely understand both sides on that one, because you've got the right to go up on stage as someone who's black and not have someone shout the N-word at you.
Yeah, you do. I mean, the BBC, fundamentally, the handling of it, again, has been appalling.
It's how they handle it.
It is, and they had enough time to be able to edit that out. And you can only imagine...
What's the point of having a delay on it if you're not going to edit these things out?
Exactly. But you can only imagine the sort of hand-wringing in BBC headquarters about somebody with a disability, that we can't discriminate against them, or no, now there are black people involved and we can't discriminate against them. You can imagine, can't you, that they weren't going to make any decision whatsoever, whereas most people would have said, remove that, remove it off your streaming platform, and off you go.
No offence was intended, but offence was taken. But and again, I think there are limits on what people can say. But again, it's just that thing where surely it's about intent. It's like professors losing their job at because they're explaining the N-word or another word they're using, which someone. I'm going to say the N-word because people don't want to hear the word. I don't want to hear the word, and I don't want your children in the car repeating the word and go, "What's that, mummy?" There's a reason why you're not allowed to say these words on air, and I really agree with those rules.
Yes.
But if someone was explaining that word and having a conversation about it intellectually as a debate about whether black rappers should be using that word, for instance, and I would say I think you should probably stop using that word if you don't want other people to use it. Personally, it's a personal opinion. I think some of the black women rappers and white women rappers, some of the words they use about themselves and about other women. Maybe you should stop calling yourselves those words. And then might not encourage other people to use those words against you. But that's different. You need to find out people losing their jobs because they're just saying the word. But that's like it's got a word with that power. It has power when it's used as a word of abuse, but it wasn't in that circumstance.
And it really wasn't. This is somebody with Tourette's who cannot help, and it was explained best to me by somebody who said it's like a computer program that gets stuck. The word is in their head and they cannot do anything else other than spout it out. They don't mean it. They don't mean to cause offence. And we should understand that was the whole point of the film, was to raise awareness of Tourette's.
I mean, here's the main thing on this one. Again, it's the BBC handles it badly. Shocker. Let's go to your messages coming in about the Iran war and defence, and indeed, our role. Keir Starmer off to the Middle East. I've asked you, what's your reaction to both sides claiming victory, the US and Iran? Ben says, taco has taco. Taco refers to Trump always chickens out, the phrase on the internet. Complete surrender by the US and its proxy Israel. Now Iran is in a very strong position with its 10-point list of demands. Yeah, it's not going to get them. If they do, then frankly, game over. Theo says, truly a miracle. I'm very cheerful that both sides managed to win. Nala, sarcasm there. Nala says, America and Israel have been totally humiliated. Two superpowers could not defeat Iran. Let's go to Chris, who's on the line. He's called up on 0344 499 1000 from Hereford. Chris, what do you want to say?
Hello.
Hello.
Basically, I listened to the both channels.
Chris, can I stop you there? I think your line was very clear before you got on air. The guys were saying to me, but could you... I always say this because it's a tech fix. It's like turning it off, turning it on again. Can you move one step to the right or left? It nearly always works.
All right, can you hear me now?
A bit better, but move again. Hold the phone right to your ear. We'll try all the other options.
My phone's playing up.
That's better. Don't move. Stay exactly there.
Right. Just a quick thing is, our UK defence to be frank, it's a bit of a joke, to be honest.
Yep. You say a bit of a joke. I go more than that.
Because the thing is, you look about 15, 20 years ago, our defence was really good, and basically our defence budget was really good. Yep. But now we've cut our defence budget, and to be honest, I claim benefits. I'm on the benefit system, yep. But we're putting too much into benefits and stuff like that, where that money from benefits can go into the UK's defence. Yep. Because at the moment, and I'm being funny, but we can't. If somebody invaded our country now, I don't think we could defend it properly, to be honest.
No, we certainly can't defend a lot of our interests around the world. I agree with you. And by the way, again, if you're on benefits because you need benefits, we're all proud to pay taxes, live in a civilised country that does that. But that's very different, isn't it, from all the people who are, apparently anxious on a Monday morning.
Yeah, well, I have got a severe heart condition as well, and I've basically I've just been told that it could be terminal. So
I'm so sorry.
I know it's just I'm going to go for surgery and everything, but what I'm trying to say is I'm again I claim benefits and all that, but we're putting too much into the benefit system.
Yeah, and we need to spend the money where it needs to be spent. Chris, thank you for your call. Listen, we're wishing you, everyone here is wishing you the very, very best of luck. We'll keep our fingers crossed for you. Hope things work out all right. Thank you for that call. 12:34 is the time. President Trump he's busy. He's busy on the socials. He has said the US will work closely with Iran. We've determined to have gone through what will be a very productive regime change. They haven't really changed the regime. There will be no enrichment of uranium, and it's so that he's made that very clear. Many of the 15 points have already been agreed to. Thank you for your attention to this matter. It's always when he's serious. He's also just posted on Truth Social: a country supplying military weapons to Iran will be immediately tariffed on any and all goods sold to the United States of America, 50% effective immediately. There'll be no exclusions or exemptions. But I mean, we know some of the weapons are coming from countries which he does a lot of trade with. So interesting development there. We'll see how well that works out. Anyway, 11:34 is time. I'm going to take a quick break. Up next, going to talk about reform vowing to get tough and slash those payoffs. We go to illegal migrants to get them to pretty please leave the country. Would you mind awfully with honey on top? We're going to talk about that with Rafe Hadel-Manku. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very good afternoon. Welcome back to the show. 12:37 is the time. Just let you know the Defence Secretary, well, the War Secretary, Pete Hegseth, is giving a briefing at 1 o'clock in Washington. We'll keep you at the Pentagon. We'll keep you posted on any developments there on Ian Collins' show. Right now, let's turn our attention back to this country. Keir Starmer's leaving this country to go. Oh, no, he's coming back. Don't get hopeful, people. He's going to be heading off to the Gulf. Meanwhile, we've got some developments about how to get rid of the people we would really like to leave the country permanently. Those illegal migrants, those ones who arrive on the boats or any other way or overstay their visas, and then we try and get them to leave. Well, they apply for asylum and they often don't get it. Far too many of them do get it, who are just allowed to stay because we can't get rid of them. And then we say, pretty please, would you please get on a plane and go home? And then we pay, I kid you not, up to, lately, £10,000 a person, up to £40,000 a family, for people to voluntarily leave this country when they've got no right to be here in the first place. Well, Nigel Farage, leader of Reform UK, said if Reform get in, those figures will be absolutely slashed down to £1,000 maximum. Well, let's talk about this with Rafe Haydel-Mankey. He's a senior fellow at the New Cultural Forum, and I'm delighted to say joins us again. Very good afternoon to you, Rafe.
Hello, great to be with you.
Great to hear you. I was listening to you actually on one of the shows yesterday. I think it was on Kevin's show last night, and talking about all of the latest madness. And it's always so good to hear from your voice of common sense. Absolutely, for sure. I have to say this reform plan seems like a voice of common sense. There's been up to sort of £1,000, well, £2,500, £3,000 being offered to some of these migrants. Not always everyone getting it the full sum to please leave, but there's £10,000 per person for getting families to leave. It's absolutely horrifying for people, especially £40,000 for a whole family. That is more than the average income in this country.
Yes, and let's be clear here. This is for illegal immigrants. I'm actually a very strong proponent of voluntary incentivized payments being made to legal migrants to go back, people who've got the right to be here, because by the time an average, 3/5 of the migrants we've had legally have been low-skilled, low-wage earners. They cost the taxpayer £150,000 each by the time they get to pension age. If they get to 80, they cost £465,000 each. So I think paying legal immigrants £30,000 to leave the country makes sound economic sense. But we're talking about illegals here. They have no right to stay in this country. Why are we paying them £10,000? I think the model in America, which Nigel Farage and Reform are correctly following, seems to have worked extremely well in the States. 3/4 of the people that have been deported from America have gone back to their country of origin, and the Americans will just pay for their transport and for about $1,000 worth. It seems to me that's exactly what Nigel Farage and Reform want to do here. It seems to me a very sensible policy, something that's definitely worth trying. I mean, you need to figure out what the exact sum is. Maybe that needs to increase slightly or whatever, but 10,000 is clearly crazy.
Yes.
They have no right to be in this country. If countries aren't going to take them, ban them with visas as well. We have that policy recently announced also for slavery reparation countries.
I love that. Yes,
another great policy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, this is the thing. We've got loads of the soft power which we choose not to use. No, sorry, you can't. You and your diplomats and all your dignitaries and their families, you can't come shopping in London. Not an option for you anymore. We're going to close the door. But this is the thing. I suppose a lot of the time we're hearing, and like these payments to some of the illegal migrants coming off on boats and paying them to get back, that actually the cost of fighting these cases, cost of keeping them in the country while they continue to fight, is absolutely dwarfs these payments. And yet you could argue, that's like the same argument we have, we need to give everyone fat jabs on the NHS and pay for it, or gastric bypass surgery because it costs so much for these people to get ill. Or we could just say, stop eating. I always say, lock them in my spare bedroom. I'll give them a calorie control diet. They'll lose the weight fine, and it won't cost us an absolute fortune. You could just pay me their rent and their food costs. There are always other options, and one of the other options is we don't let them in the country in the first place. We put people. Round them up and say you can either get on a plane tomorrow or you're going to be in a camp until you leave. That's the end of the matter. There are plenty of other ways we can do this, which involve rather more stick than carrot, and I think would work rather better.
Yeah, well, one of the great policies which needs to be implemented by a future government, be it Reform or whatever, is a policy whereby if someone's application is refused, they're deported immediately.
Yeah.
So they have to appeal their rejection from their home country or from a third country, because currently they can stay here for years at our expense whilst their appeal process goes through the courts, and you get all these crazy judgments. Far better to deport them immediately. They can then appeal from their home country, and there's much less chance of them actually coming back here at all, but they won't be a burden on the taxpayer for the next 3, 5, 10 years, however long the application.
Well, and we know how many people are basically getting, leave to remain who are not. I mean, the experts on this that we speak to, border first experts, say, a lot of these people, they're not being given asylum, but they're being allowed to remain because we've got no chance of getting rid of you, and you could just move them from one set of books, the Home Office paying for their accommodation, just move them out. They go, oh, brilliant, at least we're not paying for their accommodation anymore. No, we're just going to pay taxes for their benefits. Because, of course, these people, I know it's a shock to everyone, are not all engineers and doctors, and they're not necessarily going to earn a decent salary. A lot of them don't have English language skills, they can't get a decent job, they're going to work as an Uber driver off the books while claiming benefits, while we pay their housing benefit and everything else. Either way, they cost us money. The main thing is for them to not be in the country, and the best way of them not being in the country is stop them coming here in the first place, and or making life, not very pleasant when they get here.
Yes, and the key point is these are not asylum seekers. These are economic migrants. Well, they're not even economic migrants. They're economic migrant scouts. The reason that there are young men coming over here is because they're sent by their families. If you're fleeing war and pestilence and everything else, you don't leave your daughters and your sisters and your mothers behind, do you?
Exactly.
The real refugees are the ones we saw from the Ukraine. Women, the elderly and children.
Yes.
The young men are coming over here, paid for by the families, because once they've got indefinite leave to remain and they can settle here, they can then bring the rest of their family over. That's the way that it works. We need to wake up to what's happening here. And yes, and we know from the Boris wave, because they're no different to the Boris wave migrants. And with the Boris wave, we had 4.8 or 3.6 million visas that were granted. 0.8% were doctors, 0.6% were scientists and engineers.
Exactly, and the vast majority were not working. They were here on visas where they were either students, and again, a lot of that is that's just a scam. It's just to get in the country and work illegally. A lot of them are dependents as well. I mean, are they all paying for private schooling? I'm not sure they are. I mean, this is the reality. And this isn't about being harsh. People saying, the left will say, oh, this is all so uncaring. No, I'm sorry. I just don't think that we have to take in the entire world's people who think they'd like a better life. If you want a better life, why don't you work and improve your own country? Why don't you campaign for better rights in your country? Why don't you stand up to your tyrannical government? Britain didn't just accidentally become the country it is. People from Britain fought for this country to be what it is, fought for the rights that we've got here, for the welfare state, for these things. It didn't happen overnight. And I don't think we owe the rest of the world what we got and our ancestors fought for ourselves.
No, and of course, if you import the world, you also import the world's problems. And so now we see on the streets of our major cities, we see fights and squabbles that come from foreign lands and have no place here. Be it Hindus and Muslims fighting in Leicester, as we saw, be it the rise of anti-Semitism here, be it the whole Palestinian issue. These are really serious things happening on the streets of Britain that are completely foreign to us. We never had any history of this before.
Why girls in school are being told about the dangers of female genital mutilation? Don't remember ever being worried about that as a kid.
Well, Britain is now the global centre for acid attacks. We have honour killings. Honour killings are rising up hugely. We have machete fights in the street with gangs of feral youth. I don't recall that 20 years ago. We have stories of beheadings now on the streets. I used to love history as a school child because of the Tudors, and beheadings and all this sort of thing. Never did I think they would become something you would hear about in the modern world.
Those weren't extrajudicial, were they? And again, the number of attacks, and I often find myself retweeting, and it sounds very glib, but actually it's a fair point to make, on social media. That thing that never happens has happened again. Yet another sexual assault on the person who has been convicted, not my supposition, someone convicted in a court of law by a jury, while we still have juries, who is a foreign arrival, often an illegal migrant, being given, room and board, paid for by us, and sexually assaulted a child or raped a woman in the local area. We've got an extraordinary case, an Afghan migrant, attacked a woman and her 14-year-old daughter with a wine bottle. He's been allowed to remain in the UK. He's a refugee. We can only call him AR. God forbid he has to be safe. He committed a number of serious offences. He including threatening to kill his own flatmate soon after he arrived in Britain. Clearly a danger. Apparently he's got mental health problems. But I don't see why they're our problem. They're his problem. They shouldn't be ours. Born in Afghanistan, he's still an Afghan citizen, entered the UK in 1999, and he's still here. He's been sentenced to goodness knows how many different things. He's assaulted anyone and everyone, and he's still been allowed to stay here. We've got one Albanian migrant apparently jailed every 2 days. A huge proportion of our prison cells used up by Albanians. Why do we allow any of these people in our country, given the rates of criminality that are so much higher for certain groups from certain countries?
Yeah, the mandate of a future government must be, or this government should be, the British state must put the safety of the British people ahead of migrant rights. And it seems so blatantly obvious. Why it's not being done boggles the mind, because the reality is, I mean, this Afghan case draws out two very important issues here, actually. First, the judge in this case, a woman called Elizabeth Ruddock, well, she's right out of central casting as the type of judge people think dominates our immigration tribunal system. Her background is as a lawyer working for the United Nations High Commission for Refugees.
Of course she is.
So this is a woman who was advocating for refugee rights. Now she's also given evidence to Parliament on the asylum issues. And here she is deciding that this chap who's been violent from the year 2000 onwards, for decades, this man has been violent repeatedly, that now suddenly he has the right to stay here because his new medicine means that he's not psychotic any longer. Well, look, we need to get rid of these. We need to get rid of these activist judges. We've had judges who've actually were celebrating the defeat of the Tory party over the Rwanda scheme, you know? As Jenrick said, it's like finding out halfway through a football match that your referee is a season card holder for one of the sides there.
Absolutely.
That has to go.
Oh, absolutely. I'm thinking we're going to have a root and branch clear out here. You can reapply, but we would like you to actually obey the law rather than try to make the law. That's not your job. Time is against us. Rafe Hadel-Mancu, Senior Fellow at the New Country Fund. Thank you, as always, talking so much. There's Claire Pissell, your reaction?
I think this is a lesson for anybody thinking of voting for the Green Party at a general election, because they would have open borders tomorrow if we let them.
Well, I mean, lots of the Labour Party. I mean, Yvette Cooper has never given me a definitive answer about, well, how many people would you let in? Well, anyone who needs, asylum. Well, how many?
They
Give me
need
a
to
number.
make a
I hate to tell you, you in the last Tory government, you lot let in more. You put Blair immigration levels on steroids.
Yeah, and I don't.
Boris Johnson
didn't
put it
agree
on
with
rockets.
I didn't agree with it then either. I really don't.
Well, I'm terrible. I'm always doing this every Wednesday. But it needs to be called out.
You do need to call it out.
Called out. Anyway, 12:50 is the time. Up next, we're going to be talking about all those wonderful new workers' rights that you've got as a result of the wonderful Angela Rayner. She was the Deputy Prime Minister who brought this workers' rights bill into force. It's come into force this April, but it also includes the power of effectively the workers' rights police to enter your office. What will they be doing that for? Well, we'll talk to City AM's Alice Denby about that up next. This is Talk.
The Crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royal tea from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to the Royal Tea from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon. This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense. 12:52 is the time. I'm just going to talk about workers' rights for 1 minute, but just some breaking news for you. Actually, just down the road from here, actually, the Tate Modern Gallery just on the south bank of the Thames in London has reportedly been evacuated. Nearby bridge closed with counter-terrorism police at the site. It's a big tourist hotspot. Easter holidays, of course, very, very a big tourist spot. But a bomb disposal unit is there. And they've been dispatched to the museum. Police, fire and ambulance teams have been spotted lining up outside the building. It's located next to the Millennium Bridge. We don't know the nature of the incident as yet, but the building has been closed off to the public. The fire brigade were called at 11:30 this morning, so just an hour and 20 minutes ago. So we'll bring you the latest on that on Ian's show as and when we get it. As I said, bomb disposal unit is not a counter-terrorism unit. Apologies, I misspoke then. Right now, let's talk about employment rights, because Angela Rayner's workers' rights police will apparently have the power to force their way into businesses, to seize documents and arrest people under Labour's new employment laws. You thought it was just about getting some sick leave from day one, didn't you? But the Fair Work Agency, which the former Deputy Prime Minister began to oversee, has allowed sort of come into place, is going to oversee the enforcement of the Employment Rights Act, the power to carry out unannounced inspections and use force where reasonable and necessary. Let's talk about this with Alice Denby, who's opinion and features editor at City AM newspaper. A very good morning, well, good afternoon to you, Alice. I mean, sorry, when would it be reasonable and necessary to force their way into a building where people are working, where they think that employment rights are not being enforced?
No, I mean, this is absolutely absurd state overreach. And one of the rights that they're supposed to be enforcing here is flexible working by default. So what are they going to do? Break into an office to make sure no one's there?
Just check they're all on Zoom from their garden. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, you don't improve workers' rights by making people unemployed, and that is all of these regulations do. You speak to any business, they say this makes it more risky and more expensive to hire someone. 2/3 of businesses are planning to freeze hiring in the next year. 1/3 are planning to reduce headcount. So all this is doing is losing jobs for people and harming the economy. It's a terrible idea.
And this is the thing. Again, this is a cabinet and indeed a government which has no experience in business and doesn't understand the choices people make. Say, well, yeah, isn't it terrible? You got ill on your second day in a job, so you should have sickness leave. But not looking at it from the employer's perspective. Do they want to take the risk of hiring somebody when they're going to have a massive commitment to them, possibly for a year, even if they don't turn up to work ever? I mean, it's just not understanding both sides of these things. But in terms of the actual rights that people are getting as of this April, what are the key things that people now have a right to which they didn't before?
So as you said, it's sick leave and paternity leave from day one. The government did UTAT, so you were supposed to have protection from unfair dismissal from day one, which businesses were, of course, extremely concerned about. You obviously need a period to settle in, make sure the job is right for both the employer and the employee. So that's now being pushed back to 6 months. But listen, all this is going to do is create a bonanza for employment lawyers. This snooper squad is able to come in here and levy fines or take disciplinary action on a worker's behalf. So it's not even the worker itself who's initiated this. All this is going to do is create masses and masses of work for our already congested employment tribunals, and as I said, reduce employment overall.
Well, the thing is, they're going to enforce things like, minimum wage, modern slavery regulations, holiday pay and sick pay, and there are unscrupulous businesses and employers who do actually treat people appallingly. They don't give them their full rights, but surely we've already got enforcement for that.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we've already had the minimum wage. It's already illegal to pay people below that. Look, as you say, there are unscrupulous employers, and it has been difficult to enforce things like modern slavery, mainly because people who are subject to this don't come forward, right, because there's a lot of organised crime. That seems to me like that should be a matter for the police, though, not for some sort of Rainer snooper squad. Yeah, that's, yes, a very, very fair point. And again, I suppose I wonder how these businesses would respond, because again, if someone's coming in, if you think that these laws are being broken, that should be a matter for the police rather than the snooper squad. And again, they're probably going to go for the easy targets. We often see this. Enforcement goes for easy targets. Businesses are doing pretty much everything right, but someone wasn't given the right to work from home. And by the way, I don't think you're supposed to have that anyway. You've got a right to ask for it rather than actually a right to it. Otherwise, businesses couldn't function, could they? But they're going to go for the easy targets, like the enforcement does with everything, rather than the people who are really genuinely exploiting people. Yeah, and as you say, I think it just reveals that this government's attitude to business is that it's a problem rather than the growth engine of our economy. They think that that capitalism in general is an extractive, a manipulative, exploitative system. Yeah, exactly. Rather than what we know is that it's the basis of our freedom and our prosperity. Yeah, exactly. It creates the pie that they want to share out. Alice Denby, so good to talk to you. She's opinion and feature editor at City M. I hope you'll come on again. Claire Pearce, this is a big issue. They genuinely do think that, don't they? Bad business, bad bosses, bad.
Yeah, anybody that makes a profit is definitely bad. We can't have any capitalism.
Does anyone make a profit anymore?
Well,
I mean, that's a genuine question.
So. You'd like to think so.
I do worry if anyone's making a profit anymore these days. Really? Good luck to you if you are.
I mean, why do we need a snooper squad going around? I look forward to the police coming into my office in the House of Commons. Good luck with that one.
Oh, I would love to watch that. That'd be good. Yeah, turn up here. I mean,
come on.
If you can get the lift to take you through. We have smart lifts in this building. We're on the 17th floor. It can be a long wait. Yeah. Anyway, Claire, thank you so much for joining us. Covered a lot of different stories today. Delighted to say joining us right now is Ian Collins. Hello.
Well, you see, this workers' rights thing, it's